See if it works.
You're live.
Oh, wow.
We
It's
are
working.
live.
Good thing, because we tried this an hour ago and it didn't work.
It didn't work.
Because we thought it was 5 when it wasn't. It said 4 hours, but we didn't notice that the time was wrong.
Well, we had to work today because it was Labor Day. We worked every day.
Yeah. So
I don't know if we should just wait a few minutes for let people join our live. We have somebody right here, Oreo at 1873, thumbs up. Can you hear us? Can you hear us okay? I'm going to turn this up.
We're not very good at this, so.
We just thought we would try to do a live today, given that we have missed out on YouTube because we have just had it quite a summer.
We've been working.
Yeah.
And in fact, like Tiffany mentioned, we were cutting a cab in half today. It was whole thing sitting out there on the truck still.
Mm-hmm.
Cowl, firewall, the whole thing up to the windshield frame. Anyway, pull up our little notes here.
We took notes. We tried to give a little bit of time so people could be thinking about what they wanted to say or discuss with us about like a work ethic or Labor Day, JWs, their work ethic
idea. And this was all kind of sprung on by us anyways. I was reading an article, I think it was a Newsweek article, and you can just Google it, on the hardest working states. And it should be said that these are based on employment rates, like leftover vacation time days, things like that. So I just argue that that's a pretty big asterisk, because work ethic and jobs aren't always aligned. What about that more? But North was voted as the hardest working state. I think they've had that 2 or 3 years running now anyway. But it goes through the ranks, and this article does. There's a lot of articles out there, but if you look at this new, it has a map, and Tiffany will pull up here and show you that map. And then it ranks all the states from top down, if you will. So let's go.
I'm going to get to the article here. Can you hear us? Okay. Can somebody say something like in the chat or something that we're actually coming through?
Or if it needs to be loud enough or louder or whatever. Anyway, show that map. There it is.
This is it. You can see that.
And we'll talk about that map here in a minute, but go off through the top 10.
So the blue is what is the hardest working states. And
top 10.
You're just fine. Oh, perfect. Good. Okay. So the top 10 are North Dakota, Alaska, Nebraska, Wyoming, South Dakota,
Slow down.
Maryland, Texas, Colorado, New Hampshire, Kansas.
So it's kind of interesting going through that map, and this being an election year where we're like shown maps of the red and blue states almost daily. It's hard not to notice the similarities. A lot of those are the Midwest. And there's some outliers in there.
New Hampshire, I think their motto is like live free or die.
Yeah,
in other words, like be self-sufficient, do the things you need to do. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. So, but I suppose that political alignment isn't, too, we're not trying to be political here, but it's not too surprising, because often lines are drawn between ideologies. But it's interesting that I have always argued that the ideologies, again, going through that middle section, it's mainly rural. It's rural versus urban lifestyles. That's kind of the differences more than it is a lot of other political issues. And I would even say that even in states themselves. Minneapolis.
Minnesota
is not the same as the rest of Minnesota. They absolutely do not think the same.
It's like Twin Cities are their own thing and everybody else is different.
But they have the political sway because of all the people. Or same with Washington. Seattle is different than the rest of Washington state. You go to New York. We've delivered lots of vehicles out to rural New York, And I'll tell you, it is absolutely not the same as when we deliver to Newark, New Jersey, or downtown New York, which we've done as well. So
Yeah.
there's a big difference in lifestyles where a lot of times those lines are drawn. And culturally speaking, in North Dakota, they've had to historically be survivors.
Yeah.
But maybe I should go through the least first. So we went through the top 10.
So
now
the
let's go to the top,
opposites?
the 10 bottom. Then I'll get into this historical of.
If you want to see this
North
article,
Dakota.
it's a newsweek.com article. And you can you Google like hardest working states or something like that. But the other 10, so like the least hardworking states.
And I want to say that this can also, and you'll notice right off the be because of certain economic and that's why I said it should be with a big asterisk, because you'll notice some of these states, it's because of economic things. So for example, the first one,
West Virginia,
is the hardest working state is West Virginia. Well, I don't think historically people in West Virginia would be considered not hardworking. Oh my goodness, they're coal miners historically. But what's happened to the coal industry? It's absolutely collapsed. So then these people aren't working. They have no other work to do. Either they're moving away and getting work, or maybe there's other issues that come up, and then you have the opioid epidemic that came in and all these other things that sort of lend to that. So I think, again, these can be held with a big asterisk, but go ahead. So New York.
So the article was basically talking about like employment or unemployment.
Right.
If you're going to look at the other side of it.
More than work ethic. So anyway, go ahead.
So West Virginia, New York, Michigan, these are the least hardworking states. New Mexico, Connecticut, Nevada, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Ohio, Oregon.
But again, a lot of those are on the coasts, showing that difference in ideologies, really urban. And it is different. You go to Seattle and start driving down the coast, it all blends clear to Oregon, clear to California, and all down the coast. It's just people. And it's the same way on the east side of the Appalachians. You have the same situation. The west side, you don't see that all of that. It's more rural. As soon as you get into that east side, it's just all urban all the way down one city to the next. They just blend together. But culturally, historically speaking, here in North Dakota, as I was talking about earlier, people have had to be survivors. And I mean, just to get through winter, or farming was hard work. Not quite so much anymore. I'm not saying it's not hard work, but they got a lot of machines that do the work that they had to do back then. But people in North Dakota, historically speaking, they value and esteem those with a hard work ethic, so to speak. And there's even a saying here. How's the saying go?
Yeah. Like if you have one job, you better have a job. Like there's no excuse to not have a job. There's plenty of things to do around here. And if not, you need to create something, and you should. But if you have 2 jobs, good.
That's normal. That's normal.
Yeah. And 3 jobs, now you're doing something.
Yeah. So that's kind of the attitude, but that saying only goes so far, because having a job doesn't necessarily equate to work ethic. And before we share these observations that we've got here, we should add this caveat that we recognize about ourselves. And that is, like we said, it's Labor Day, so up to an hour ago we were working. I was up yesterday at 4 a.m. working. That was Sunday. But that's just kind of the nature of what we do, being self-employed. We sell to people around the world. So when we're sleeping, guess what? They're up and they're asking questions. And if I happen to be up going to the bathroom, I'm working too, answering a question or whatever. It's kind of like
a lot of times when the questions start at 4 a.m., instead of coming back to bed, you'll just stay up.
I don't have a choice.
Or you'll be like, I have to get some sleep because I just need it, and you'll force yourself to go back to sleep.
Yeah, I have to. So sometimes I don't get a chance to, like you said, I'm up at 4 a.m.
You just have to stay up.
But I'm up at 4 a.m. doing something, and then, on the East Coast, they're an hour ahead of us. So, if it's 4 a.m. here, it's 5 a.m. there. They're getting ready to go to work, and before they head out to work, they're buying something or asking questions or whatever. And so then I'm stuck up. That's my up. That's it. I don't get a chance to go back. But it's kind of like that Patrick Mahomes commercial with the other football player, the hair, the Hawaiian guy, never not working. So it's kind of like, and that's not to boast about ourselves. As I said, that you can either view that as a good thing or a bad thing. It's kind of like Proverbs 25:27 or 27:2 states that it's not what we say about ourselves that matters, but it's often what others notice and mention to us. So what have people said in that regard about us? What things you can think of?
I think when we were working on that blue house over there, someone had said, "You guys do the work of 10 men." And doing a project like that, oh my gosh, climbing all over a roof and painting and
so that's when
finishing a
he's
job.
like looking at it, he's like, geez, you guys do the
do a
work of
lot.
10 men. Or we'll always get, geez, do you guys ever quit?
You ever take a break?
We get that often too. So
And we do moments, not days off. We just have moments off.
Yeah.
Like
So
right now.
So we just wanted to mention that caveat that we recognize about ourselves that we probably lack some work-life balance. So with that being said, it seems to us that the other side of the spectrum is that there's a big difference between having a job and working hard. As an example, when I first started pioneering, just baptized, and I pioneered right off the bat, and we're out in service with these witnesses. Always went out in service with girls. None of them I was interested in because that's who was out in service, right? During the day, because their work is probably not working, or at least had a flexible schedule in that way. Anyway, so we're out there driving back and forth, doing the pioneer shuffle from one side of town, doing a call, going back to the other side of town, doing a call. And the whole time they are talking amongst themselves, these two sisters about, I'm sitting in the back seat with my head like this, just listening to them rant back and forth as they're driving back and forth. I'm like, my God, can we get somewhere? I'd like to get some calls before the day is gone. I got to get to work, Anyway, they're like, oh, pioneering is such hard work. People just don't realize how difficult it is to be pioneering. And finally, after about 20 minutes, I'm just like, oh my God, you guys, if you think this is hard work, you have never worked a day in your life. Because it's not hard work. It's just not. Just hello from Cali. Someone said.
Oh, good. Finally.
More people clicking on. That's great.
That's good. Welcome.
Yep. But that's a great thing about live. Come in when you want. You can go back and watch it later. And the great thing is that we don't have to do any editing.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why we decided to do this.
But
and because if people want to say something, we can have more of a discussion, and I think that's important.
Yeah, so we will pay attention, as we can to what you're saying. It's not just our input.
Minnesota here.
Don't you know?
So you know all about Minnesota, the split.
the differences between the two.
Yep.
City and rural.
City and rural.
But we've noticed this attitude that these pioneers had, as far as working hard or their idea of work or their work ethic. The higher you go up the JW ladder, the Jehovah's Witness corporate ladder, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
There's a pioneer elder couple in Devil's Lake.
Was
in Devil's Lake and was a pioneer elder couple. They got removed but anyway, go ahead and state what their attitude was.
I guess and I think a lot of people have this mentality if it's just trained, among Jehovah's Witnesses, that if you're reaching out, and this particular couple was trying to reach out for circuit work, and so their idea anyway is that the congregation will take care of you the more you reach out, and for them that led them to basically draining our bank account, thinking that they were entitled to our money. They just twist the scriptures so that way that they could get the money.
So they could make us pay them for a situation. We did a whole video about that.
Yeah, we have a video.
We're not going to get into that. But that attitude, and then they were removed from the congregation, removed from being an elder and a pioneer, and then they moved away and didn't appoint him. Actually, they weren't removed. See, this is the corporate game they played. Instead of removing them, they just dissolved the congregation over this whole deal, never reappointed him, so that way he could save face or whatever it was. Anyway, or the attitude that SKE elder, I got to say it like that, who says, I didn't come here to work. What? And he said that while the congregation of like 25 publishers is literally paying their bills.
The congregation that we were a part of was like maybe 25, maybe 30 publishers, but it was always like, less than that.
Yeah, but I mean, they're paying for their rent,
Mm-hmm.
and the situation with the rent where they were living.
So a brother had an extra home, and they let this ski couple live there, and they were collecting a check from them, aka was collecting a check. The congregation was paying this.
Yeah, they were collecting a check from the congregation.
Yes, basically, and we were told that this family, not the ski family,
the brother told us that I've got a pile of those checks. I haven't even cashed them. So he was doing the righteous thing and not realizing that all he's going to do is be taking it from the congregation, mm-hmm. who are supposed to be donating it for Jehovah, and all they're doing is taking care. But by the way, I hope he did cash those checks. Anyway, but all they're doing is taking the money from the congregation for Jehovah and giving it to this lazy SKE elder who just refused to work. I didn't come here to work. And the disgusting thing is that same brother he was renting the house from offered him work, offered him a job in several different ways. You can drive truck for me. You can work in my office. You can do this for, and nope, I'm not going to do it.
And there was other things they did.
I didn't come here to work.
But I mean, other people offered him jobs and offered him things to do, but he was being so particular about it.
Yeah, like he's going to get some desk jockey job in North Dakota. That's the difference between, and he was
originally from Southern California.
SoCal, which probably in the urban areas, it's a different lifestyle. You can't come here and expect to find that job where you live. They were 50 miles from a McDonald's or a Walmart. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
So it's like you're not going to find that urban job. You better want to work. Otherwise, you're not going to be here long. And guess what? That was the case. They lasted another year, which was, I think, the minimum they had to. I think when you go to ski school, you have to stick out the assignment for 2 years.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah. And then after that, you can abandon the congregation. Mm-hmm. Which they did, of course.
Which exactly what they did.
And then for us,
and isn't that annoying? I want to cut you off just for a second. I know what you're going to say, and I'll remind you. But isn't that annoying? Because they'll say, I didn't come here to work. But yet on the same idea, I mean, on the other spectrum, they'll say, I came to work for Jehovah. Do you know what I mean? And
i.e. drive around in a car.
Yes. Yes.
And we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. This work for Jehovah and what that really entails versus what they say it entails. And we're going to get into that in a second too.
But that couple, you were saying, I don't know if you're going to say things about like, we moved them over here.
Yep. Here it is. We didn't charge them nothing to move it over here.
From Oregon.
And they loaded the trailer we dropped off, we had a delivery to do over there. We loaded up our load, which was a vehicle
it's
that
like
we had purchased.
It's like a 20-hour drive, just driving normal speed limits.
And we loaded up the vehicle, put our vehicle on the tongue so that way it would be heavier.
Yep.
And left a little bit of room in the up front for their heavier things. And then, you can load the rest of this 40-foot trailer with the rest of your things. No, they built a big box on the back of it, not even having a clue what tongue weight means. And the 40-foot trailer with a truck moved more towards the front.
They put like a washer, they put like dryers and exercise equipment, like the lightest possible things that you
in the front, and then built this huge box on the back. I'm not kidding you. They like built an altar on the back and stuffed all their crap into this.
The big, huge sectional couch.
I mean, just also this, and I'm just like, oh my God, I hope this goes okay. We couldn't go over 45 miles per hour the whole way. Ended up blowing out our wheel bearings.
It was a bad deal.
If you know anything about wheel bearings, they often don't blow when you're doing it. They blow the next day when you take everything all the weight off. Anyway, so
anyway, we did all of this charity, the congregation, us. They did all this charity
to help them out. And then they've got the audacity in our judicial appeal meeting
She said,
yes, and it was like out of the blue, just entered it on her own, just interjected it without being asked. That's not a brother. Where the heck did that come from? And what? Because we have questions about things? Because Tiffany had a Bible study that had questions? That makes us not a brother? Just even though we helped you over here? It's unreal. But that attitude of poor work ethic just seems to permeate the higher up you go in the organization.
yeah.
I think there was something else I want to say.
Yeah, go
what
ahead.
you said in the CO meeting to these elders, it was in our judicial appeal meeting too. You said about these elders that are our congregation.
You mean specifically about them, to them? Like, I think I was talking about like their authority or.
Yeah, there was something that, no, it was with their knowledge of, because the abuse issue came up and how they're being abusive.
Yeah.
And our abusive past. And then it's like, you don't have the knowledge to even deal with
Who
that.
are you? I said, who are you? I said, you're a paper boy. Like, he delivered papers.
That's what his job was.
Right. And I said, and you're a cable guy. He was an internet connection person. And I said, and you don't even have a job.
And he'd already been there a year, still didn't have a job.
Like, yeah.
So you wanted to say something else?
I don't remember what I was going to say, but.
Sorry.
What are they saying? You're what? You are valid. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So that doesn't mean to say that, there aren't witnesses that have a good work ethic. Granted, some of them need to be, you can run into this in the world as well. There was an individual we had living with us. He was coming from the world, and we moved him over here because he was having a hard time. And after a month of living here, it was like, okay, you need to, if you're going to stay here and live here longer, you're more than welcome, but you need to pay your own way. So you need to get a job. You can work with us doing roofing, or which we were doing at the time, or you can go get a job somewhere else. Well, I don't want a roof. Okay, well, then you can go get a job somewhere else. Well, I can't get a job. I can't find one, blah, 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 whatever it was. And I'm like, so I guess that you can go to work with us. Well, I don't want a roof.
I don't either. Me
neither. I don't want a roof either. But guess what? That's how I'm putting food on my table right now. And so that's what we're doing. And I'm giving that to you. You can either
get a job or you're going to work with us. That's those are the options, because I'm not paying for you.
Neither let him eat.
I think as he said that, I don't see it that way.
I don't see it that. I don't care how you see it. If you don't want to work, then you're not going to eat, and you're not going to live here either. So it's you're not living off of me. But he learned. At least he learned. Yeah. True. Or I think about the one elder who he was Mexican, had a family elder. And by the way, Mexico, if you're wondering, culturally speaking, how the U.S. ranks in the countries, they're usually in the top 10. Mexico is right up there in the top 2 or 3, as one of the harder working nations. Anyways, he was a hard worker. I mean, and I'm not talking just a job. I'm talking about a hard worker. Whereas, again, some of these elders, they had a good job, but I wouldn't call them hard workers. And you can always tell when you're on the hall builds who's really a hard worker and who's just out there pencil pushing and watching, which really irritated me. That's another thing with this
walking around with a hard hat on thinking you're doing something.
Yeah, and do this and do that. Oh, you're an elder and you don't really have any work ethic. But that brother that was renting the house out, he had a good work ethic, and he couldn't do anything in the congregation. They wouldn't let him do anything in the congregation because he can't handle mics because you're not spiritual enough. Boy, but you sure can't bring your heavy equipment over and work on the Kingdom Hall. Oh my goodness, now you're our buddy and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but yet he can't he can't vacuum the hall. But he can be over here with his heavy equipment. It's just a bunch of using, and that's what that is. Crazy. I'm shocked that Prince Michael Jackson, who I thought were smart people, were Jehovah's Witnesses. And I don't blame people for being Jehovah's Witnesses, because there are a lot of good things that they do. I still hold a lot of those ideologies that are in the scriptures, but the problem is they don't live up to them, or they flop on them, and that's what they did to us. When push came to shove, it wasn't about the Bible. And that goes on to another statement that Tiffany made about to the CO. But before I get into
Oh.
that, the way Jehovah's Witnesses are organized. So this one elder, by the way, was a hard worker. He was removed because he was commenting about the cable guy elder storing all of his personal possessions in the Kingdom Hall garage, and the other elder that wasn't working. I mean, there was a watchtower that came up. I'm like, I'm not getting involved in that.
There was so much rock throwing.
My goodness, the one elder with a hard work ethic, he was hammering the fact that you need to get a job. If you don't want to work, neither let him eat, all those things. You know, there was an opportunity to comment, and he was on it. They weren't headhunting us at the time. So I'm like, I'm not getting involved in that. I was commenting at the time, but I left my comments totally uninsulting.
Neutral.
That's right. But it's the organization itself, the way that Jehovah's Witnesses are organized is in opposition to the scripture. It's like Tiffany asked the CO. You remember that question you asked the CO?
I'm trying to remember exactly what I asked, but I think it was about, if we're talking about work ethic, because we always talk about that scripture or that ideology about Paul being a circuit overseer, and Paul worked with his hands. And so it was something like, I said something like, I wonder when the circuit overseers, I wonder when you're going to have to work, or like go work with your own hands to take care of yourself like Paul did, or something on
Instead of living off the congregation.
Instead of living off the congregation.
And
Yep.
so here he's offended by that. But what's he offended at? Is he offended at Tiffany, or does it really just show his view of the scriptures that she was quoting?
Yeah.
I mean, let's read it. I mean, pull up that scripture, 2 Thessalonians 3, right?
Yeah. We saved it. This kind of goes along with all that ski elder stuff that we were talking about before too. It's 2 Thessalonians 3, and I'm using their own weapon. Now we're giving you instructions, brothers. I'm starting in verse 6. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, to withdraw from every brother that is walking disorderly and not according to the tradition that you received from us.
So Paul says, the tradition that you received from us. So that's Paul speaking, and it's funny because Jehovah's Witnesses often will say, well, these were letters written to the congregations, meaning the elders. So go ahead. So this is a letter to the elders. Here's what he says. Some of you are walking disorderly.
For you yourselves know how you should imitate us, because we did not behave in a disorderly way among you, nor did we eat anyone's food free.
So being disorderly was eating someone else's food free. And
on the contrary, by labor and toil, we were working night and day so as not to impose an expensive burden on any one of you.
So not to expose a burden on the congregation, but here's that ski elder, SKE school elder, and he's living off the congregation for a year or better.
Not that we do not have authority, but we wanted to offer ourselves as an example for you to imitate. In fact, when we were with you, we used to give you this order: if anyone does not want to work, neither let him eat.
So that counsel, we hear that so often. If he doesn't want to work, neither let him eat. That was counsel to the elders who are doing something else that the scripture says instead of working.
For we hear that some are walking disorderly among you, not working at all, but meddling with what does not concern them. To such people we give the order and exhortation in the Lord Jesus Christ that they should work quietly and eat food that they themselves earn.
So here they were supposed to be working. This is working with their own hands and not meddling in other people's business. And I can tell you that's exactly what was going on in our congregation. You've got an SKE elder who thinks he's hot stuff because he's been sent by the branch, just meddling in things that have nothing to do with him, and not taking care of business the way he should have been. No. Keep going in that though, because through what is it, verse 12 and
I just read through
11?
12.
12? Oh, did you? What's 13 say?
13 says, for your part, brothers, do not give up in doing good. But if anyone is not obedient to our word through this letter, keep this one marked and stop associating with him so that he may become ashamed. and yet do not consider him an enemy, but continue admonishing him as a brother.
So here it is. Disorderliness was accounted. What the situation actually is, disorderliness was the fact that elders were meddling in other people's business and not having a job. And that's who they wanted to have marked. When has an elder ever been marked?
For that, anyway.
Period.
Yeah.
When has an elder ever been marked?
Depends on who knows, I guess, right?
Well, nobody's marked. No elder is marked. You're removed and maybe marked. There's no marking talk given about an elder.
Right.
That doesn't happen. That doesn't exist. They'll take you in, they'll sit you down privately and maybe give you some counsel. And then when you're removed, then maybe they would go ahead and do a marking if you continued at whatever they wanted to change. So the whole Jehovah's Witness organization of hierarchy, of not working like the Apostle Paul did with his own hands, because Paul himself said, yeah, you're not supposed to muzzle a bull when it's thrashing, but I set the example for you. Sure, we're supposed to be able to eat from our work and labors, but I set the example to you in contrast to that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to live off the congregation. We're going to live off what we ourselves do. There's all sorts of talk about how Paul was a tent maker, worked with his own hands. Nah, not among Jehovah's Witnesses. The hierarchy doesn't work.
You know, and even if you go higher up, like let's talk about people that are at the headquarters, governing body, a helper to the governing body, anybody that they want to say it's working, but who's paying their way? Who's paying for them to be there?
Yeah. Yep. Oh, it's so irritating.
Kind of is.
But let's read some of these comments.
Okay. I was assigned to go in service with our DO. I suggested we should use his car the society provided. He said that that's not what his car was for and changed the groups. Now he's on the GB. Oh, really?
Nice. So which GB member was that? Oh, by the way, so I'll give you a little bit of background insight to that. Not that I have a whole bunch, but just from talking to other people, they have mileage. Those cars are all leased. So they have mileage limitations so they can get a good trade-in value when they're done, which is why they have to keep them so immaculate. Heard, huh? Look at the big brain on Heard. Keeping the corporate way so he can get his, good value for his lease when he's done. Yeah, that was exactly it. They can't rack up too many miles on those because, they want to make sure they get a good trade-in value.
1988. Interesting.
Funny. What else? What else we got up there?
Rich people work smart, not hard.
I would say that rich people work smart and hard.
Depends on what they're doing, yeah.
If you notoriously look a lot of these rich people, they didn't start out rich. As a matter of fact, they were entrepreneurs if they were self-made anyway. They were entrepreneurs who were busting their butt. Look at Elon Musk. I don't think anybody would dare say that he didn't work hard. It could be arguable that all the ideas he did were not his ideas, but it doesn't say he didn't implement a lot of things. I mean, it's pretty well known that he slept in couches and slept on the factory floor in order to make the corner on Tesla. And I agree with that. There's a huge difference between success and failure, and it's the thickness of a hairline. As I think you've probably all heard the saying of "for the want of a nail." Let me see if I can go through that quick if you haven't heard it. For the want of a battle, the war was lost. For the want of a cavalry, the battle was lost. For the want of a rider, the cavalry was lost. For the want of a horse, the rider was lost. For the want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For the want of a nail, the shoe was lost. The war was lost for the want of a nail. And we've been on, sometimes we're doing a delivery or we're doing, on the road.
A job.
Yep.
Doing a job.
And the difference between success and failure, or at least major heartache, can be pushing it another half hour to get through a city and not stopping before the city. even though it's 3 a.m, because you could sleep on the other side and get out of the traffic that you're going to have to deal with the next day.
In the morning for rush hour.
Or, and we can go through different principles all day long. We bust our butt and it's like, oh my gosh, we just need to finish this though. We've got to finish it right now. And you don't finish it, or you do finish it, and the cloud, some rogue cloud, rain cloud rolls in the next day and ruins your work day. And it's like, my goodness, I'm glad we finished that. So I think that
what is it? Make hay while the sun shines? Is that the statement?
You don't have any choice but to work hard sometimes. So I think working smart is working hard.
Efficiency. I think that's the key, is being efficient. But I mean, some rich people, I'm not saying we're rich, but I mean, as far as like investments, they make wise decisions in what they're investing in, or they make wise decisions in and sometimes it's a risk. You really don't know.
It reminds me of a friend I had. I built a Mustang for him. It's sitting in my garage right now, 70 Mach 1. Anyway, he's like, I don't understand how you have all these cars. Well, the funny thing is that, so he paid me to build that car, and then he went, and there was a time period where he kind of ticked me off, and I wasn't going to do any more work for him because he didn't appreciate what I was doing.
Yes.
And so I'm like, we're still talking, cordial and whatever else. I'm just not going to do any work for him. Anyway, he goes and buys this motor, 460, for this Mustang, this Mach 1. And I said, I mean, that's cool and all, but you're buying it out of a wagon. It's just this plain Jane motor. It'll be neat that you've got a 460. You don't want to do that though. This is your daily driver. You don't want to do that. It's going to be a nightmare. And that's when he came to me and he said, I'll kick you $100 for putting that in, after I told him not to buy it. And I'm like, nah, this is going to be a nightmare. I want nothing to do with it. So he ended up taking it somewhere else. And at the time, 20 years ago, it cost him $2,500 for this motor, another $2,500 to put it in. It was a dog.
No power.
It's a wagon. There's no power mongering there. Anyway, I'm going to put a tunnel ram on it. I'm like, I wouldn't do that, but you're only as powerful as your smallest hole, and it doesn't have any compression. It doesn't have anything. It'll look cool sticking out the hood, having cleavage, but it ain't going to be, that was our joke, hood cleavage. Anyway, it ain't going to run any better. So he puts another $1,000 into it, tunnel ram. So now we're, $2,500 for the car, for that wagon, $2,500 for this motor, another $1,000 for that. So we're $6,000. Then doesn't have any more power. Motor starts knocking. So has it rebuilt, I think? No, he decided he was going to go find another motor with a 351, $3,500. I said, have you heard it run? Nope. Didn't hear it run. So he buys this other motor, put another $2,500 putting it in, and it knocked. Mm-hmm. Then another $2,500. It was like, by the time we were done,
waste of money.
He had a $15,000 loop and dropping dropping a 351 in it. And I'm like, you want to know how I have all these cars? That's how. I don't make that mistake. So a lot of times working smart is part of that, goes along with that working hard, as we talked about. Smart people are leaders rather than followers. This is why they create their own religion or don't join any at all. It's interesting you say that. A couple things I wanted to say that, that is interesting about religion in general in this country. And this is why we haven't started or joined. One, I don't think I could join. In this country, in order to have your religious rights, for example, when the COVID thing was going on and you had to get the jabby jab or lose your job or have a religious exemption, you needed to have a letter from your religion, like your 501c3. Wait a minute. So in this country, in order to qualify as being a religious exemption, you can't just say it. It had to come from somebody that a government-sponsored, authorized religion. That to me goes against the scriptures entirely, the whole idealism that I need to acquiesce to some hierarchy who doesn't even believe the way that I believe, perhaps, in order to get my religious freedoms. That's just crazy. So the whole idea of a religion being what it is in this country is skewed and or skewed. What's interesting is with when I became a Jehovah's Witness, they sold me on the fact that we're not an organization like that. We're not a.
They told you that.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what they sold me on. That we're only organized because we have to be, but
because the government makes us
basically,
yeah.
and it's true. You don't get your tax benefits without it. You don't get even the right to assemble peacefully can be validated by an organization. So a lot of those things are very, yeah, like I said, they're skewed in the first place, that you've got to be a member of this organization in order to do this. But that's why we haven't bothered to join a group. And even how do you create one? How do you create one? Because so far, it's like I was talking to somebody else and they said, it's been 2,000 years. Nobody else has figured it out yet.
But I do have a statement to make now, because I've been meditating on that as well.
Okay.
And think of the scripture that says it does not belong to man.
Who's directing you to your step?
Yeah, to lead another man.
Yep, to direct your step. Or I often quote the scripture that says, no, a ministry was given to me. It's my ministry, because we'd often get that. We built that Model T that has the Jehovah stuff on the side, or that, if you've seen that video, it's uploaded too. And it's like, oh, your elders let you do that? Elders let me? What do you mean, let me? I have been counted worthy of a ministry, the scripture says. And it wasn't by these guys, it was by Christ Jesus. So anyway, but the whole idea, though, of every time an organization gets there, you can say, well, it needs to be done by the congregation, the people. Well, then you got a congregation. It's sort of like, I know somebody who left a congregation because congregation wanted to hold to, I won't get into what it was, holding to an unscriptural idea. And he's like, no, you got to do what the Bible says. And they're like, no, you got to do what the congregation says. So
that's how there is all these different kinds of religions and
well, that's how one kind is. Another kind is started by somebody going, well, I know how we'll do it. We'll have a hierarchy that makes that decision. And then you end up with the same thing that Jehovah's Witnesses are, where they do anything to protect the organization. Mm-hmm. The organization becomes the God. And now you don't follow scriptures because that's not to our benefit. You see, it's not to our benefit to have these CEOs work for themselves. We need, how did that one Google Translate correct when you tried to type in circuit overseer, it said,
instead of CO, it said CEO.
CEO, that's right. Gotta have all these CEOs. Gotta have this corporate idea.
I think sometimes in the videos when you have the caption on or whatever, like you could read it, it will say, if I say, or somebody says circuit overseer or CO, it will say CEO. It like corrects it to say CEO. Like, oh, that's telling.
Somebody made a statement about a 73 Mach 1 Vader. Bought it new. Red, totally dressed out. I miss that car.
Oh, you don't have it?
No, those are a good car. Good old, the original Gone in 60 Seconds car. We've got one of those too.
Ours is yellow. Our 73 Mach
yellow now. I don't know. I might leave it yellow.
Okay, I missed you guys. It's been a while. Glad yous are well. We are well.
Not too bad.
I hope you're well.
Yeah.
I recognize your name. Let's see. License, yes. All roads, 501c3 lead to Rome.
That's good. Pretty good. Yeah, that's right.
Lots of changes in the org. Greetings from Canada. I know there has been a lot, and I've kind of, well, again, we've been just busy working through the summer. It's been a real hectic summer, and I have read a few things about possible changes coming. Not possible. Like everybody's got an opinion, I guess is what I'm saying, and what they might say like at the annual meeting. So maybe we'll get some more weird changes too that have to do with money or,
Maybe they'll make the COs get a job.
Wouldn't that be incredible? That would be incredible.
Hey, we've got a quote here. Believe me, woman, John 4. A time is coming when you worship the Father neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem. And what's great about that is he's talking to an apostate. That woman was an apostate. She was of the 10 tribe kingdom that branched off away from Jerusalem, goes back to the king's situation where you got Rehoboam and Jeroboam, and the one saying, we need to worship in Jerusalem, and the other one, interesting enough, getting worried about his authority. And then he says, no, you don't need to go back to Jerusalem to worship. We'll set you up these high places for you to worship. We'll set up these, look at the parallels. We'll set up these high places for you to worship. I've heard comments among witnesses like, I'm sure glad the governing body, does all this research so I don't have to think about it.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's just wild. Nuts. Or I was telling an elder in our call, the cable guy, the elder, I was telling him, these people, this watchtower basically says that they're our leaders. And Jesus said not to have any leaders. No, that's not what they meant. The friends won't take it that way. Literally, yes, I'm handling a mic, hand it to his sister. And she says, we need to listen to them because those are our leaders. And I looked at him on stage, the cable guy elder, and I was just going, frickin' A, you gotta be kidding me.
Give me that mic.
Yeah, but that's the question that the woman asked, should we worship in Jerusalem or these high places that were set up that we should go worship to instead as apostates? And Jesus said, believe me, woman, you apostate, who he's speaking to, the time is coming when you won't worship in either. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a great comment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think it sort of goes back to it's nobody's business. Like Jesus said, he was teacher, and he always directed to his Father, right?
Yep.
We don't need men.
Why does this window keep?
Because it's my email.
In my way. Get out of here. Get out of here.
I think
we read something else going back to this comment about Prince Michael Jackson or Jehovah's Witnesses. Who was it we were reading to? Oh, Lorena Bobbitt.
Oh, no.
Yes, that was one of them. Lorena Bobbitt was studying with witnesses, I guess the Awake or Watchtowers on the counter.
Is that real?
I think so.
Is that real?
I don't know. I heard it was funny. If it ain't, you'll have to double check it. Don't believe me.
I don't know if I feel like doing a research on that.
Well, as the one, who was it that said they're just a bunch of all the men of Jehovah's Witnesses? They're a bunch of bitches because they don't.
It was Marcus Vaughn.
Oh my goodness.
What's his statement? Ex-Bethelite here.
Yeah.
If you don't know Marcus Vaughn, you need to go.
But anyway, we're not endorsing him. We're just saying that it's a funny thing.
No, but he said that, and I have quoted that. Like the men in this organization,
they've all been demasculinized. But now they can grow beards. So talking about those changes.
But that is another thing that's growing a beard is a natural thing that men should be able to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that organization for so many decades, you couldn't even grow a beard,
And where's the scripture? Where's the scripture reference? And and it goes back to all these things. And I always talk about this with the cable guy elder.
Mm-hmm.
It's going beyond the things written. Well, what harm can it cause? And I'd say the same thing. What did the scriptures say the harm is?
Yeah.
And he didn't answer. And like I said, after the third time, different conversations asking that. Mm-hmm. And he said, what harm does it cause? And I said, what does the scripture say the harm is? Mm-hmm. And he said, it invalidates God's law or God's word. And I said, right.
Then
You
they quit.
keep
Then they don't
adding
look at the
to it.
Bible. They look at those men for an
And
answer.
That's right.
And then they have. I'm so glad that the governing body, what you just said, the
Yep,
governing
our
body
leaders,
makes those decisions, so I don't have to,
they think for us.
or think for us. Yeah. Can you turn the light on just a little bit? I feel like the sun is starting to go down and it's getting dark.
Yeah, we wanted to start this at 5, and we were out there probably because we were out in the job. It said 4 hours to go, and it's like, no, it's not 4 hours to go. 4 hours will be 4. We won't even be back from working by 4. And then so she gets on there frantically trying to adjust it and changed it to 5, which was 6.
So could you please just turn the light on a little bit? We need some new light.
So it's getting dark early was my point.
Yeah, the sun is going down early. Yeah, that's better. A little bit better. I don't know how long we want to stay on. We could.
Yeah, I plan on at least, staying on an hour. If you guys have something else you wanted to say, by all means.
Just comment
How have we
you
been doing? We've been doing our car show thing. Go ahead and say something else.
Whatever.
We went back east.
I'm trying to remember what the last video we did was. I don't know. It was our last live, and I don't know when that was exactly. But yeah, we went back to.
My nephew was
Virginia, Tennessee area.
Graduating in Tennessee, and I thought that was a pretty good excuse to buy a car. And so we bought a car in Virginia, met some ex-JWs there.
Yep.
And actually, current JWs too.
Yeah, I guess. But in person, like we've had a long relationship with some of these people since we've been out, so like a few years.
Yep.
And then it's like, well, we're going to be in the area, so let's do a little meet up. So we did.
And then we went to my uncle's graduation.
We did do
my nephew's graduation.
We did do some vlogging for that, so hopefully in the next coming videos, whenever that's going to be, we'll post some of that on there.
Yeah.
So we did the graduation. That was
there was interesting. So I was sitting at the graduation, and what did that guy say? That I pay attention to when people talk, and he belittled Jesus for one. Which
what are you talking about?
At the graduation, and we're listening to the speaker.
He belittled Jesus.
Yes, because the scripture says to treat others.
I don't know what you're saying.
How you want to be treated. And he said, no, you need to treat others. I don't remember what it was. And I was going to mention something about that. There was another thing that he said that was it sounded good, but it was way off base. It's sort of like JFK's. Everybody, I'm going to ruffle some feathers here, and I don't care. This is one of the dumbest statements ever that a political person has made. And it went over with flying colors like a bunch of lemmings. JFK's statement of ask not what you can
do.
No, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. I'm sorry, but the purpose of a government is to serve the people. And when the people no longer willingly do for their government because it's not caring for the citizens of that government, then government it's lost its use, and it won't have the support of the people. But it reminds me of there was not a watchtower. There was I made this comment at a watchtower. It was about maybe it wasn't. I don't remember if somebody else remembers this. I know it was an article I read. It might have been in a watchtower. It was in Japan, where a woman or a child was going to high school, and it's like you had to come down the mountain, and the only way to get down the mountain was a train. And the children had all graduated, and yet there was one child left who hadn't yet graduated. And they're like, we're not going to shut down this train running to run up the mountain and pick up this girl because she needs to get to school. And the comment was by one of the townspeople, who wouldn't love such a government who does such things? So a government that takes care of its people, the people will willingly sacrifice for. if it doesn't care for the people, it's totally lost its purpose. So that whole JFK statement is just the dumbest statement I've ever heard in my life, and I just can't believe people are duped into it. New book on the Kennedys. I haven't seen it.
I'm sure there will be more information coming.
If Trump gets elected, he says he's going to release the Kennedy
Information.
files, so that'd be interesting. And by the way, we're not being political here. I'm just recognizing some certain truths.
Well, and what people are saying.
But that's exactly with witnesses. We always talk about Jehovah's Witnesses are a large army. If you don't care for Tiffany makes this statement about veterans all the time. Now, we get into this debate often, but there are certain things that are discussion often because it's talked about so often these days, is how this country doesn't take care of its veterans. And I'm like, well, you know what? They did a job. They did a job and they got a paycheck for it. And they knew the risks of the job and whatever else. And they do have certain benefits. They do get a certain amount of, they can go to the VA. They can go to the base and buy their food stuff still and some other things. So they do have some other benefits beyond their military service deals on insurance and things of that nature. So they do have those deals too. And she says, yeah, but then they're given so much. Well, there are some vets that are homeless, yet they're not helping those ones per se. And yet they're giving it to people who aren't even of this nation. Mm-hmm. So that's very, very odd. Mm-hmm. And then you carry that over, that idea, just carry that over to witnesses. Not only are you not getting a paycheck, so now you're thinking that the congregation is going to take care of you, but they'll drop you like a heartbeat as soon as they're done with you. And they'll say, keep warm and well fed. Oh, you don't think Jehovah can care for you? Jehovah can provide mightily for you, like this recent watchtower they had last weekend. Remember the ways Jehovah worked in your behalf. Yeah, he worked in my behalf when I reached out to go to Bethel, and you guys were providing for me, and then you guys kicked me out, and now I ain't got nothing. I don't got any retirement. I don't have any income. I don't have any skill sets, really.
Nothing, absolutely nothing. And not even, what is it, Social Security, if you're in at least if you're in the United States, right?
Yeah. Oh boy.
It's backwards. It's way backwards.
Let's see. We have more comments here.
Okay. Let me see. Ella Jones is a 70-year-old Jehovah's Witness who lives in the ground level apartment directly below the one occupied by John and Lorena. Oh, so is that true then? Then she was studying, or she was on her way into that organization, or, Yeah,
so that's some validation.
A little bit. Hi, you too. Hello. Happy to see you, Elaine. And then, good to see you. Glad you're doing well. You've been missed. Much love from Georgia.
Yeah, sorry about that. There are some people on here we really respect. And Charles had mentioned, maybe you should put it out ahead of time so that way we can think about things to say. And I'm like, yeah, but then our schedule usually doesn't work like that. As soon as we try to plan anything, something comes up and outgo our plans. So we're always best if we do something. I always like to say, I swing by this, seat of Jehovah's pants, so to speak.
And I'm such an A personality, like very scheduled, and it drives me nuts if we're not on time.
She wants to organize everything and, have it all scheduled out.
We're complete opposites that way.
I'm not opposite. I don't mind having a schedule. It just never works. How many times have we scheduled something and it doesn't, well, you don't disagree. You're laughing at me.
Mm-hmm. Ella was a witness to the Bobbitt's arguments, according to the article.
Okay.
Was a witness to the Bobbitt's arguments, according to, okay. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
So then when we were at that, we went away from the Tennessee, and after me being irritated by that speaker I was talking about that was given it's like the, principal, vice principal, something like that.
Oh, at the graduation.
Yeah, whatever he said, just I don't know if I wrote it down or not, but whatever it was just so off base. It just made me shake my head. Sounded good, but it was just a word salad that didn't work out well. Anyway, so then we go home, and I'm like, on the way home, I'm searching for more cars to buy.
Mhm.
I find one in Iowa,
Mhm.
and I call the guy up at like
I think it was late, really late.
10.
No, it was a little bit earlier than that. I think it was late eve and like dinner time, like 6, 7 o'clock.
Said, "Oh, we're heading that way. If you want to sell that
We're
car."
like, we're in Illinois. We had to make the decision to either go through Iowa home or straight north through Illinois, Wisconsin, like up that way.
So Wisconsin has an angle road that cuts across, even though Wisconsin roads are through, at least through Madison area. The rest of them aren't too bad, but Madison isn't too great.
Anyway, we had to make a decision. We were either going to go straight north and then over, or we're going to go west and then north.
So Iowa and then.
So we're like, but if we're going to go through Iowa, then we could pick up this car. But Chad said we probably won't be there till like near midnight.
He's
so
like,
whatever.
So we show up at his place at midnight. Sure enough, drag the car out there in the street. Small town, midnight.
And I don't know if you all remember in May, but the tornadoes.
Yes, and we were in a hurry to do it because we knew these tornadoes were going. Go ahead.
And both directions. Like if we were going to have severe weather, whether we went through Wisconsin or whether we went through Iowa. And we had this car on the back, and we don't have an enclosed trailer, and so it was like we've got to plan this just right because the hail and the storms were going to be fierce. And so the storms were starting to grow like around us, and we're like, we have got to hurry up. So here it was midnight. We're loading up. You can hear all the lightning and thunder. And that was when all those nasty, nasty tornadoes. They say it's like the strongest tornado ever on record through Iowa. Like, I mean, ever.
It went by a mile from where
it was
we were
so
at.
Close to where we were.
It's like, because we were thinking about, well, maybe we can just crash here and, we'll leave in the morning. It's like, no,
we got to push
Let's load up. And that
it.
goes back to that idea of hard work and wisdom being part of that, because you could be lazy and still be, a hard worker and just make a dumb decision, and we're like, no, we're going to push it. We're going to get through this, make the smart decision and get out of here. And
so
meant we had to drive till 3 a.m. or so.
Yeah, it was really late. And finally,
so I think we got cleared up to Minneapolis.
No, we didn't get quite to Minneapolis. We got across the border, maybe an hour on the other side of the border into Minnesota, almost to the cities. And it was like, we've just got to quit. We've been driving all day from Tennessee. We've got to quit.
And then we noticed that was the.
And it was like right on the line of where the front was.
Yeah, because that's what we were doing. We were driving just out of where the projected front of the storms were supposed to go.
So that was eventful.
Yeah. So what else we do? We did a couple of car shows.
We've done some shows. We did our show here in our town.
Yep. Other than that, we've just been working our full heads off.
Yeah. We've had so much rain here in our area. I think one farmer said that we've had enough precipitation, like 2 years worth of precipitation here. So a lot of rain, which means you're mowing grass a lot and just trying to take care of our life, But we haven't had a lot of time to do videos, not a lot of time to really even keep up with some of the XJW or JW things.
Because they're like somebody said, there's been so many changes that are going on that just like make you.
It just shakes your head. Like, and I know that sometimes maybe we just go along with it while we're in the organization. Then when you're out, it's like you get a different perspective. And it's just so, I don't know how to even explain myself.
Yeah, here's a comment that comes up that says,
what's that?
They're lazy, or
they were not, and we're basically taught to be lazy. If it's not for the org, then why waste your energy, right?
Yeah.
That's a really great comment.
And I will say that,
time is money.
I wasn't always a hard worker. I wasn't always a hard worker. You learn that, right? So when you're
ethics are learned though.
Yeah. And so you pick that up along the way, either through mentors, parents and other people or
experience. Like
I just don't want to live like this. There's a lot of things that I could comment on that aren't so good about my past, but I had a stepdad that had my last stepdad had a good work ethic, and I worked with him when I was 14, so packing blocks for mobile homes and, doing that type of thing, or, so you even though you don't like it, you're still a kid. You may not be the hardest worker, and you learn those things. You pick them up through their endurance of your not doing that work, for example. But you learn it eventually. But that point, you wanted this. I think you were talking about this earlier about then why waste your energy is what she said.
Yeah.
So you go off on that because
I'm
going to have a glass of my a shameless plug for my brother's wine, Rosemary Manor. Go look it up and
you drew that, by the way. Here's my plug.
Oh,
Chad
yeah.
drew that label for them.
He asked me to sketch out a label, so I sketched out the label on their bottle. It's of their.
That's actually
Grandma's house. They're his grandma, my step grandma, and he's got a vineyard out back that he planted. And
the idea of what you're saying in the comment, no one special is saying, is that time is money. So give us all your time. Pioneer, serve, do all the things, reach out, blah, blah, blah. And so then you can't have time to do anything for yourself or make money for yourself or further your own life. Instead, you're going to give me all your time and whatever money you have. Don't forget to put that in the box. Oh, and your children's ice cream money. Don't forget that too. They just want you to they want everything from you. Everything.
Yeah.
I say that because we started a farm and we got lots of, wow, that takes a lot of time and energy and money. I was thinking, are you going to feed us? I think not. We are Texas. Yeah. Texas.
Right.
Farming is animals, especially, take year-round work.
Yeah.
Whereas like agriculture farmers, like for wheat and different things, like what we have around here, we have animals too, but not
mainly
us.
Cattle or
people around here. We don't have animals.
And we don't have wheat or canola, but they farm a lot.
No, but I'm saying the farmers around here, they have several months in the winter where they don't really have a lot of field work to do.
Yeah.
How could you? Because it's frozen.
Yeah.
But like when you have animals or cattle or things, no, it's year round. It is such a struggle. I totally respect people who have animals because you don't get to leave. You are so committed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that idea again about why waste your energy on anything, but it does breed a certain laziness, So again, we had some elders over here, and he was like, I don't know, wowing at something, and he goes, "I wish I had time to do that." I'm like, do it. Oh, maybe in the new system.
You push it off.
Why not do it now? I mean, if you've got spare time to do it, then do it. You're not pioneering. You're not putting in a bunch of hours at the hall. It's like they get a certain accolade of. It's like I make the statement all the time that a foot that continues to compare itself to an inch will never become a mile. So think about that for a moment. A foot that continues to compare itself to an inch will never become a mile. So in other words, it's like this country, if it continued to compare itself to some third world country, so to speak. Why are you comparing yourself to that? You're not well beyond that. If you are well beyond that, why are you comparing yourself to that? You're never going to become what you could become.
The potential is.
Or Jehovah's Witnesses, and I would say that all the time to Jehovah's Witnesses, our kingdom is, our rulership is so much better than the world. What we have is so much better than the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a foot that continues to compare itself to an inch will never become the mile. Don't worry about what ways that you're ahead of someone else. What is it that you need to become, that you need to work on? Because you're a far cry from where you need to be. And so, but that attitude of, well, I'll just wait to the new system. So it's like they purposefully diminish everything else because then it makes it seem like the foot is big. If that makes sense.
They boast themselves so much.
Well, yeah, they do. But I'm talking about an individual in the organization. So They're saying, oh, well, I don't want to do those things now, because it's like the attitude that some people have when we built that tea. Some people, oh, that's great. That's so cool. But the yuckety yucks, oh, they hated it. Because now it's like one elder said, Absalom in his chariot.
That was so great.
Oh, come on, cable guy. And then he denied saying it later. Oh boy, jeez.
We've been debating on what to do with that car too.
And it wasn't until the convention elder said
The convention chairman.
he was they were up doing the concrete work on our hall parking lot. He's like, "Oh man, you got that tea still?" Because we took it to
Milwaukee.
Wisconsin, yeah. And he's like, "You got that tea still? Can you bring it down?" I'm like, "Nah, some people really get that.
They don't like it here.
Ruffles, feathers ruffled."
Oh,
He's
they
like,
don't like it.
"How could anybody not like that? Bring it down." All right, so he was a cool guy. So anyway, we brought it down, and that's when he said that Absalom's chariot comment. But then, after it sunk in that this guy was really, really liked it, and we went to Rolog with it, where they won't let you place any literature. We went to Rolog, and Rolog, you can look it up, Rolog, Minnesota. It's like an old town. They open up for 2 weeks out of the year. I'm talking.
A week.
Okay.
It's 1 week, and it's right now, Labor Day weekend. That's it.
Look it up. Steam train.
It's really
steam
beautiful.
Carousel. Steam anything you can think of. Tractors and steam.
It's like a town that just starts and volunteers.
Yep. People dressed up in old garb, but one of the things you can't do is you can't advertise anything.
No religion, nothing like that.
When we had some videos playing on a big screen inside of the T, and they came by and said, "You can't do that. We don't allow any." And I'm like, "Well, can we do this?" And what we did is we just played different pictures of witnessing. And that's
more about history.
I was kind of bummed out. And this CO chairman, he goes, "Man,"
convention chairman.
He's like, "Don't be bummed. Let's do it. Let the T do what you designed it to do." And he was like totally behind it. And so what we did is we uploaded a bunch of historical pictures from JWs and just let that play. It wasn't an advertisement, but yet it let people see the
Show
history.
the history, yeah.
But anyway, some people really got irritated about it, and other people.
And we've talked about what to do with the tea now, because it's just sitting in the shop, and it's like, we're obviously not going to advertise for them, So we're like, how can we unwitness? We use it as a witnessing thing. How can we unwitness?
So it's like somebody brought up, heard before. We thought about going to like the fair and playing all the dumb stuff they've said over the years. So, play, I think it was Heard that was talking about how women's brains are smaller,
Yeah.
That's why, men are smarter, which means cows must be just geniuses in his book. Hippos, oh man, I'm telling you, they gotta be there.
Park in front of conventions.
Yeah, with it, yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
It's just a matter of time, though. I mean, here's another topic we can talk about is how small are y'all's conventions? Like if any of you guys are still in the organization or have family that are still in the organization, I got a picture showing a sister with some of her friends or whatever at this convention back where we're from in Idaho. And they go to the Tri-Cities. Kennewick, Washington is where they're assigned. And it was so empty. I couldn't believe how empty it was.
And it started a little debate between us because I'm like, there used to be like 8,000 people there. Like, no, there's no way it wasn't 8,000 people. I'm like, yeah, it was 8,000 people every blah, blah, blah. And I remember it being packed out. And so
was it like 7,000 up in the bleachers and maybe a grand down on the floor?
Yeah, well, that's why I looked it up. And the attendance, the biggest attendance was a rock concert. And it was like near 8,000 people.
Yeah.
So, because hockey games or basketball games, they take up a certain amount of floor. So the capacity of the venue changes depending on what's going on. Well, a concert doesn't take up any room on the floor. Same thing with the Jehovah's Witness convention. All it is a stage on the floor. So they set out all the seating along with having all of the stadium seating around the auditorium. So, but yeah, I remember it being so packed. If you got there late, you were trying to find a spot behind the speaker. It just wasn't happening. Yeah. But yeah, she sent that picture and it's like, you can see all the seats.
They have many seats on the one side where it was just totally empty. Like they were not even allowing people to sit back there, probably because they have screens too, right? But I remember them always having like 3 or 4 conventions in a row in that facility.
And they were all packed. Just packed.
And I think it was like what was remaining was even like peppered. Like you could see many of the seats were up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There were a lot of the seats were up.
Okay, so yeah, I heard no more conventions planned in the future. Oh, really?
That would be a big drop, wouldn't it?
And that's interesting because conventions are huge moneymakers for them.
Yeah.
So I mean, how is that going to affect their pocketbook? That would be my question.
Yeah, that's interesting. But you know what? They invest in things like,
Real estate?
no, well, certain real estate, certain commercial,
So
commercial real
Are they
estate.
planning on eliminating?
But they also
Kingdom
invest
Hall
in
buildings?
Lockheed Martin.
But if they're not going to have conventions, I'm curious about the Kingdom Halls. Are they going to start going underground and start eliminating more Kingdom Halls? That's a good thought, anyway.
Yeah,
they are liquidating assets.
Yeah, they've been liquidating.
Yeah, they've been doing that for a little bit.
I wanted to say, somebody said they put 45 years of the real life for the Borg, and it's sad because you go back and it's like, I will say that the things I didn't do for an organization. I wasn't very good at falling into line. We never gave them hardly a dime monetarily. I put in my time going out in ministry. We were there all the time.
Never missed a meeting. We're always out in service.
But I'm not giving
you. And we were there to help anybody.
And it's
in
like
some way.
And it's like the old adage of, when we see that Jehovah stops providing for us, then we'll realize that
time is money. Yeah, time is money.
When we see Jehovah stops providing the means to have this watchtower,
you recognize that
we'll recognize that Jehovah has spoken. Well, guess what? They quit making the watchtower pretty much. Now it's just how often are they making it now?
Yeah, I don't know, like 3 times a year, maybe?
3 or 4 times a year. Yeah.
Loads of money from Watchtower going to Ireland.
Why?
My guess, televangelizing. Yeah, that I'm wondering too. It was one of their biggest mistakes they ever made, actually. Televangelizing. That's funny.
Yeah,
Pick
right.
up your phone. How much you want to donate?
Next, they'll be doing the God will bless your efforts. The Lord will bless your way if you fill my Rolex needs.
Right. It's crazy. 3 corporations in Ireland just formed. Interesting.
That is interesting. Ireland's having some unrest right now, aren't they? Who isn't, though, right?
Yeah, there is crazy.
England's having some unrest. It's debatable that there's even some areas here that are, I guess, in Aurora, Colorado, they're having some issues with Venezuelan gangs that were looping together. Again, I'm not getting on a political.
I think the city lives are getting harder and harder for some areas. I think it's just there's just so many people. How do you keep them?
Yeah,
but line,
But back to that, putting in 45 years of time.
Yes.
What could you have done? And again, I will say that what I did for witnesses, I believed I was doing for Jehovah, but I didn't do it for witnesses. Like I said, I didn't play well with others. They were always trying to pull us to go out in the congregation, go out in service down there. Like, no, we'll go out up here. Thanks. Our statement was 70 miles for the congregation. That's a blessing and a protection.
They hated
it when we said that. Because it was, and from their gossiping and their meddling in my life and all that stuff, it just serves the protection.
Mm-hmm.
But still, monetarily, like you said, time is money.
Mm-hmm.
How much money have they taken from people? And to sit there and lie to me like that whole time, that's what irritates me. They told me I wasn't joining an organization. And we went through this in our disfellowshipping. What was it when he said, the chairman said, "Oh, so you're associates now?"
You're just associates?
No, it's something. But what did I say where he said that? I said, no, we're a group of brothers
in association
with one another. Oh, so you're associates then? What word twisting corporate games are you playing? So everything that I believed and was told was twisted and turned on its head. It was just.
We need more new light. So can you Can you bump it up just a little
Bump
bit
it up a little
more?
more. Pretty soon we'll look like we've got light
It's
from
okay.
above.
It says Kim and Mikey have a video about it. Assuming the video is about Ireland, I think is what. Whoa,
Let me know when.
that's great. But I think that is one of the main games that. Sorry guys, I haven't got the sniffles because we got a lot of smoke filtering in our area.
They're harvesting too. It's like a double whammy.
It's
Smoke coming blowing up from the wind always
Wyoming.
blows here, and it's usually blowing from the north or from the south or the northwest. But it's back and forth. It'll so like tomorrow we'll be at.
We're gonna be near 90 and smoky,
And the following day,
and then Thursday was 60s. So,
you know, so it's like blows in from one direction, and then
yeah,
they turn the fans around that are south of town, and they blow the other direction.
our palm trees.
That's my joke.
Yes, about
The
Ireland.
windmills.
Okay, I'll have to look that up and see what that says, what they have to say.
But I just want to finish off that.
Yeah, go ahead.
The time that they steal from you, and they really manipulate out of you, and then they take that from you. And some people, they're literally taking their money in the same. And again, we could all argue time is money. We agree with that. And I could show you my bank account, and I could tell you how much money they've taken from me since we've been disfellowshipped. It shows how much money they've taken from us in the time that we spent. That I take that back. That they've stolen from Jehovah. That they've stolen not only from us, but they've stolen from Jehovah, because they put themselves on high.
Mhm.
They put themselves on high.
But I mean, you think about 70 hours. If you have dedicated to 70 hours or more hours, depending on what you're doing for a ministry, and you take that same time and you have it
What is
pushed
it?
towards
900 and
actually
whatever a
job,
year.
840 hours. in a year.
840 hours in a year. What could you get done with that?
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Quite a bit.
Whatever task. Imagine that you practiced music for 840 hours.
Yeah.
Imagine that you, and again, not just making it money, but just a skill set.
Okay, so Elaine asked, I wanted to address this a little bit. It's not really important. It's just a personal thing. But you said, do you grow a vegetable garden? Usually we grow something. And every year has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. We used to grow a really beautiful garden. We have a farmer's market, and we do take advantage of that.
I will throw in a caveat. For us, a beautiful garden.
No, but I'm just saying
we're talking
useful.
North Dakota, where there's just these people own quarters of land.
Yeah.
So that's
their
like
gardens-
quarters of a mile, right? And they talk about land in quarters. So their gardens are like an acre, and they'll plow in a half acre of corn, and they'll plow in, just everything you can imagine. So
No, but I'm
it's
saying
a nice
like,
garden for us.
it is. It is that it was.
Not compared to theirs.
We would grow things that make sense. Like corn, we don't have enough of a footprint to grow corn. So we would buy corn, or like usually we have tomatoes. This is the first year I've not grown tomatoes. All I have now this year is a basil plant, a mint plant, and
part of that is you
Is
can't
that
find the plants, and it's gotten
That's it.
so expensive for plants.
everything's got.
I can go to Aldi, right? And you can buy the lettuce, they've got a 4-pack of artisan lettuce. I could show it to you. It's in my fridge for like $3 or $4.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll last in the fridge. They leave the stump on it, so you can put a little water in it. I suppose if you
Stump?
put that,
The stalk.
okay, the stalk. They don't remove the whole thing off the bottom. So you've got a little bit, if you put a little bit of moisture in it, or even in the fridge, it lasts 2 or 3 weeks. I haven't had one go bad yet.
And then we're done. Chad's put them in the ground so that way he can grow.
And if
his
I
own
was
lettuce.
more, plant, horticulturally unchallenged, I would be able to grow my own lettuce heads out of that. But it's so expensive. You go buy a lettuce plant, and they want as much for the lettuce that I'm going to get. And we have such a short growing season here.
Yeah, we really do.
That for those kind of things, it doesn't really even work out. I mean, sometimes we've gotten a frost before the tomatoes are even ready, and that's just cherry tomatoes. I'm a big salad guy, so not vegetarian by any means. I just like a salad.
You like salad, yeah.
So I'll throw together, I don't know if my salads could be qualified as salad. They certainly aren't vegetarian, I'll tell you that. but I'll like pile on a salad and make, it's
A
got
crazy-
meat and,
It's like everything.
it is. It's an everything salad. But one year we were able to get, and that's the other thing is what we can get here is totally limited. So you go to Walmart even, or a bigger place, and only one year, for whatever reason, the local hardware store has a pretty good greenhouse. I didn't get down there this year. They may have this year, but the last 2 or 3 years, they haven't had it. But that one year they had, things like arugula and,
Mhm.
sage
Like
and just
special.
all the things, because I would make a fresh herb salad out of that. It was great. But I haven't seen that for a while. The arugula just pops with some things. But
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, I think the cost is a big deal, but I think part of it is just time. We earlier were talking about time management. Time is money. I would love, one of my favorite things to do is be out in the yard. I love doing yard work, but this year I literally don't have the time. So we've been buying things. Put some grow lights in your shop. I don't have room. We don't have room. I would love to do that.
Well, as I told my wife, I'm learning how to walk like a supermodel.
Oh my gosh.
Like a goat trail going through some of their.
We literally,
selling.
I want to say this. We literally could have a frost in the next 2 to 3 weeks and snow on the ground in a month. And it would stay here for many months after that.
You remember the one video we did on October 10th? We got 32 inches and it was done. That was it.
So we just have a really short season. And right now, like this month is dedicated towards not only keeping up with work, but getting all the cars and all the things that are outside you don't want buried in snow in a building. And the rows start to get really cramped. So I don't have room to even grow tomatoes inside. I do bring the basil and I do bring some of those other things inside and try to keep them alive. But when it's 30 below and they're sitting in a room, it's drafty and it's hard to keep them alive, even inside. So
yeah, so
it's hard to live here.
Your thermostat will be set at 70 and
it's 59
it's
degrees.
70, that's right. And then, next to a window, we've literally had you'll get a 30 mile per hour wind at 30 below, and it comes through a pinhole like needles, and it'll kill a plant that's 3 feet away. Not a problem.
Are you prepping for outages, food shortages? Well, because of where we live, I guess I'll say this. Because of where we live, our grocery store has good sales, but they don't have good prices.
Or quality.
Yeah, or quality. So
in other words, you'll go buy berries there. Let's say it's we're big on, getting berries. I like to take a few in my mouth.
He likes produce. I'm not much.
So just as an example, they'll last a week. I mean, if I buy, blueberries,
you gotta eat
raspberries, blackberries, I eat them that week, or they're going to be rotting. We can drive down to Grand Forks, buy them for about the same price, not on sale, but because Aldi really doesn't have quote unquote sales, but they're about the same price of the sales up here. Up here, you can't hardly shop without the sales. For example, I walked in the store the other day. Guess how much an avocado was? $3.99. $3.99 for an avocado. Go down to Grand Forks, it's 89 cents.
Yeah. So we'll stock up on food when we're down there. Like avocados will last really well in the refrigerator, and we'll just pull like 1 or 2 out at a time.
And that's the other thing I was going to say is I can buy the berries down there. They'll last 2 weeks in my fridge. As up here, no way.
Yep. So we do have like a pantry that lasts. Like we would have enough food to last us several months.
But that's kind of what we're trying to say is that's kind of a way of life here.
That's what I was trying to say is that we stock up a good pantry. We stock up a good amount for the winter because there'll be many months where we may not be even leaving town. Like we're just here. It's so cold. I wouldn't even want to drive very far.
Yeah.
We've become a little soft because, we drive 70 miles to the meeting before. We never missed a meeting unless they canceled it.
And we would if we had to again, but we just don't need to. So
Yeah.
Why would you go out if if the government says no, you just stay home?
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
Yep. So we do have a pretty good, I want to say stockpile. We're not stockpiling food, but we've got a good amount of food to last. It's just the 2 of us and our little dog. And as far as outages, we do have like a little bit of firewood, and we do have.
And then we've
we
got
have ways to keep warm.
and then we've got we had this idea, and it was a great idea, and it worked well until we quit doing it. But I built these shelves that go all the way around the kitchen, two high, 2x6s, routed, stained, and nice little Victorian things on the bottom, shelf holders, and they've got all the what are those? Are they half-gallon jars? They're not quart. They're
they
bigger
might be
than quart.
half gallon
Anyway, and we'd put dry goods in them, so they've got.
generators. We do
you
have
know.
a generator. Yep.
Yep, we've got generators. Never had to use it, but
No.
yeah, if you didn't have that here in the winter, we had one time where the power went out in the winter, and somebody ran into a telephone pole down there, and it took them a couple hours, and temperature drops pretty quick inside
Yes,
the
it
house. You know, at
Yes, it
30,
does.
20 below or whatever it was. But all those dry goods, they've gone stale now, but you could eat those in a pinch if something like that ever happened. So we're not preppers, so to speak, but we
But we
do
do
always
prepare.
have a constant stock on hand.
Yep, and we have, because we work outside all year long, we do have ways of keeping warm, even though. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, a lot of people like those hot hands things. You shake them and they last like maybe 4 to 6 hours. No, we're not going to mess with that. I have insoles in my boots that are USB, so I can plug them into a battery pack, and they last me all day long. Then I just recharge them in my truck, recharge them, inside. So my feet will stay warm, my hands will stay warm. We have warm clothes. I mean, we've been here almost 20 years, so we've gone through some things that have been pretty scary, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the
Pretty scary.
cold is no joke. I mean,
Winter's no joke here.
it kills somebody every year, we say,
Yeah.
and you think, oh my goodness, but so does heat in other places. I think it's just not quite as dramatic as freezing to death. A lot of people don't
Mm-hmm.
think about freezing to death because, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's
We buy a lot of meat. We buy a lot of meat, and we drink a lot of broth.
Somebody said, don't forget the pharmaceuticals. That's a big investment. Yeah, you're right. Especially if you invest in the right
Don't forget
time.
their investment in pharmaceuticals.
Yes, that's right.
That's a really big one.
Yeah.
I think he's talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
Watchtower investing in
Okay. Yeah.
pharmaceuticals. Yeah. Especially, like I said, with what happened with recently and how this government or this, I don't know, is it the government, the economic system, whatever, the powers that be, they push the pharmaceuticals and I'm just not going to say it, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
All the things. I'm not going to get onto the conspiracy theories that are
Hurricanes.
getting validated.
Never experienced a hurricane, but I can't even imagine.
That'd
Even
be
a
tough.
tornado. I mean, I know a hurricane is like many days long, lasting. It feels relentless. Where a tornado, I mean, your life's over in 2 minutes. I say your life, but not that
Maybe.
way. Maybe, but I'm saying like your whole life is ripped from you in 2 minutes. Like it could be gone, and that's horribly devastating. And I feel for people who have experienced that, and I hope I never experience that.
And I'll say this about a hurricane, though. Going by the big picture, this is kind of funny. It's a disaster area. If it's a national recognized disaster area, if you don't have insurance, you at least get to write off. Tornado goes through your little town or your little farmyard and blows your house apart, you can't even write it off.
Mm-hmm.
Is that disgusting or what? We had that debatable whether it was a tornado or whether it was straight line winds that took the roof off our shop. We couldn't even write it off because a year before they took that off the tax code to where you could write off a disaster that happened to you. Now, unless it's a nationally recognized disaster, you can't.
Tornado is worse. I've went through both. Yeah.
No.
I just
Well, tornadoes are just have that consolidated wind. Nothing survives it. Although in a hurricane, that's pretty.
Like I said, it's like
relentless.
relentless.
And it could blow stuff apart just as easy if it gets big.
Mm-hmm. Houses aren't meant to go that
And
quick.
the flood walls. Oh my goodness, the flood walls. That's. I think that's what they say about hurricanes, isn't it? That most of the damage comes from the
surge.
flood, the surge.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, you got to get your go bag together.
yeah, they gotta have your go bag. Which, by the way, wasn't them. The government recommended that. They just stole it.
They got to have their own.
Steal the ideas and then rebrand them as their own.
Yep.
Well, anything else you want to say? We'll try not to make it so long. We just don't have a whole lot to share other than we've been working our fool heads off.
What do we need to leave for? Does anybody have anything that they want to talk about other than the weather? I mean, like,
because it's been an hour and a half.
Insurance companies are
canceling coverages.
Bad areas.
Yeah.
The go bags from 1975 must have been rotten by now.
Right, and that's kind of
funny.
my statement about prepping in general. Not that it's bad to prepare, but like I said, all those dry goods that we have up there. Don't get me wrong, pasta and what the heck else, beans and all that
Wild
stuff.
rice, things like that.
It could be eaten, but it's all stale by now. It looks really pretty up there having this display of all this, food, but. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's your to-go bag's only going to last so good. I guess you could put, military MREs in there or something like that to where it would last 10 years or whatever. Yeah, it's kind of funny because we like old houses and stuff, talking about the insurance. They're canceling. I've noticed if you're on any of those, any of these Facebook groups anymore, they're just as bad as anything else. They censor anything you want to talk about or say. It's, geez, how can I get kicked off of Facebook group about old houses because I said bug and we don't allow the word bugs. Oh jeez. Because you can't say bugs in old house. Somebody might get creeped out, even though it's something you got to deal with if you're thinking about old houses in a lot of areas. Think about the East Coast or the West Coast. My goodness, that's got to be a main concern. But you can't say bugs on these sites.
How do you keep mice out of your food stash? Well,
but I want to say, let me finish.
Yes,
let me finish with the.
I'll tell you.
But a lot of these people are posting about these old houses. They won't insure them at all anymore because I no doubt they don't use the same building materials anymore. How do you build a replacement? It's like we just happened to have bought another building, another garage, if you will, storage. That's the one thing with parts. You talked about putting grow lights in there. If you ever walk into a wrecking yard, we're not a wrecking yard, but just the principle of the idea. And look at where their parts, it's always a mess when you walk in there, even from the counter almost. If not at the counter, go behind the scenes a couple feet. But you've got all of these parts that have to be stored, especially here because it's winter, we'll get drifts. And we have literally dug through 8-10 feet of snow to get to a part that was valuable enough to dig down to get to it, to remove it. So anything you can get off, your stuff in buildings. We've got 1, 2, 3 buildings full of parts right now, and I'm talking old motels that are 100 feet long, so we're stacking that stuff up so that way it's accessible in the winter. Our shop, again, 100 feet long. This other building we just bought, it's 100 feet long, so you're constantly storing these parts so you don't have to chase them down in the wintertime. But going back to your Mies story.
Oh, well, we keep food out of our cupboards and keep it in. I know mice can chew through plastic, but they don't. How am I trying to say this?
Thick plastic.
Yeah, it's pretty thick plastic.
It's harder to get through a bin, for example.
Yep. So we keep all of our food in bins or fridge or freezer, obviously. Like it's in a sealed container or it's double sealed, if that makes sense. So like it's in a container and then in a big container.
Where did you get those little? We use them as a salad. Tiffany was on this thing for salad.
Oh, snackle boxes.
Yeah. So because I make salads and I like to have a lot of things on them. So then you have to get out, the box of this and the box of that, and you have to get out the meats and slice the meats and whatever else. Nah, forget all that. So we were like, let's buy one of those salad bar things. And they're like $1,500. And I'm like, I'm not penning $1,500 so my salad could be at the ready. So her next step down was the
snackle boxes. So they have an airtight lid on them and all the little compartments. So I can have like all the food prepped and then it's all in a sealed container. So that's the trick,
thick
I guess.
Plastic latch on sealed container. And it's got 8 bins, little bins in it. So she could put sliced meat, sliced cheeses, and sliced, meats of different kinds, and sliced cheeses, nuts, and seeds, and whatever she wants to put in there.
Yeah.
And I just take a little bit and toss it on my salad as I go, and then snap it back up and either
So
stick it in the fridge or
it's very rare to have the
stick
food
it on the counter.
in the original packaging here. It's in something else, if you know what I mean. So like there's no cabinet that has food in it. It's all in something else, like another container.
And by the way, I want to quote you and commend you on the way you worded that, because you did not ask, how do you keep the mice out? Because that doesn't happen.
We live in a farming community, and we always have old cars around and things like that. And so, no, there's mice around, and I have traps in my basement, and I just checked them and reset them all. And sticky traps. We have traps all over, even upstairs on the main floor, because you just never know when they're going to come.
As soon as they start the harvesting, they're on a rush,
which is right now.
Yeah.
So we had like 2 inches of rain last week, and I had one trap had a mouse in it, and one trap had a little salamander in it. I've never had a salamander. I've never had this much water to deal with than this year. So I just put my gloves on and I reset them, and I'm ready for the next round. I hate them. I hate dealing with them, but
especially with
that's part of life in a farming community.
Especially with hantavirus, however you say it. It's the sad thing about that. The good thing is that it's a very weak virus. So any exposure to sunlight or wind or whatever else kills the virus very quickly. But if we see a mouse in a car, we don't even mess with it. Yeah, we're out. Because that's the thing, is if it's got to be live. So
it's actually in their urine
or their fecal matter, and so it's like, if you see a mouse in the car, we're either getting what we need without breathing in there, or we're just leaving the car, because it's just not worth it. And oddly enough, there's not a whole lot of mice in old cars. You would think there would be, but they're not as prevalent as you would think, especially when we try to get glass out of the cars, for example, as soon as possible. That way the minks can get in, or the, whatever you call them, weasel mink, whatever those cute little white things are, but they are mouse fiends. They will take care of that.
They'll just chase them right in there, get them. And so, yeah, a lot of times mice like things that are warm and airtight. And that's why they come in your homes when it gets cold out, because they're looking for a place to live, and they get in your walls, and they're horrible. They're just horrible. But
too bad they're so cute.
Mm-hmm. Peppermint extract, or like peppermint oil, they absolutely hate. There's a tip for you.
So that works.
You could spray peppermint in your vehicle, or spray peppermint in your home, and they don't like that.
Why don't you tell them about what you've been doing with the other little varmints that we have around here, Cinderella?
Oh, we have a squirrel family.
If you got on Tiffany's TikTok, she has it where she's hand feeding them peanut butter, which is pretty funny.
I'll just tell you what my TikTok handle is, and you can go find me on TikTok. It is
not that we post there very much either, so don't expect a flood.
What is my TikTok handle? I don't
but we can feed these squirrels by hand. They're cute little buggers.
Okay, my TikTok is at Swiffer Lombardi, and you'll see my little picture, but you can go. It looks like this. At Swiffer Lombardi, and then I'd show you the video, but you guys can just go find it. But there's a video on there that I am hand feeding our squirrel. I think it was was it maybe the baby? I don't remember which one it was. We have many squirrels now.
I think there's three families. There's a red squirrel family, and those ones are skittish. They won't eat from our hands. But the gray squirrels, they'll come right down and
they eat right out of your hand.
If we don't feed them, they're literally crawling in our door and helping themselves to we've got a bag of peanuts there for them.
I had a weasel last winter, no mice.
What kind of weasel was it? Was it like so these weasels, they seem like they change color. In the winter, they're like pure white and the prettiest things.
And they have like a little bit of light gray on their tail.
And you never see them in the summer. So I don't know where you're located or what kind of weasels you have.
hornet nest problems this year. The nests are big and active removal this Thursday. Yeah, those bees, they can be awful.
They get drunk this time of year, I think. I think the bees get all apple drunk this time of year, eating on old fruit.
All these things. We don't have any major bees. We have not bumblebees, honeybees that will.
Every year we have to deal with this.
There's two groups that come, like two corporations that come up here, bring their bees. They're from Texas and they bring their bees. And
so just to make clear that a farming community, they need bees in the fields to, so for example, canola is a beautiful yellow field when it happens. It's all in bloom, but it all needs to be pollinated. Mm-hmm. And so these bees are around for that purpose. Anyway, they obviously collect the honey and do whatever they do, but they pay them to be there, I believe, not only to pollinate the field, but then they get the money from the honey afterwards and other byproducts from that. Mm-hmm. But anyway, a queen will get out, displaced, branch out, or whatever happens. And I mean, we will be standing in, they're not aggressive. So we will be standing in literally
thousands of bees.
I've got a video I took this year where I'm just standing there and there's like bees everywhere. And the thing I'm working on, they're just caked on there.
You just, and they're only there for like 24 hours and then they move on to the next thing, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just so, I don't know.
But they're not aggressive like hornets are, man. Hornets will rip your.
They're mean.
I've got a story about hornets.
Hold on just a second. It was white with a brown tip on the tail. I live in Nova Scotia.
Oh, yep. That bet you that's probably the same type of similar thing. Yep. Nova Scotia is.
I call him Prince Harry. Oh, cute. Your bee story.
My bee story. All right. Oh, I'm a teenager, well, preteen probably, and they had this apple orchard that was a couple miles from our house. When I say apple orchard, I mean old, late 1800s, early 1900s, basically a farmstead where they planted a bunch of apple trees.
Like an estate.
Huge weeping willow. Estate's a little stretch when you're talking about a mountain town. It was just a little farmstead was what it was, but they planted their own little area. Anyway, we're up there, always went up there to get apples. You know, I lived eating those apples more than dinner, I think, half the time growing up. Anyway, so there was this big old hornet's nest. And so we're all standing up, hiding behind a log, you know, and chucking apples at it, you know. And I'm not kidding. It was like they sent out one warrior bee. And I stood up to throw this apple and one bee comes out. Zzz, wham! It's like somebody punched me above the eye, man. And that wasn't enough. So a few years later, now I'm a teenager, and instead we've got guns, right? And so we're out there with our little pew-pews and doing the same thing, the same area, shooting at a bee's nest. And same thing happens. I rise up. One bee, bam, punches me right in the head, right above the eye. I'm like, I am not messing with them damn bees anymore. So yeah, hornets will mess up your world.
I don't like bees that much, but they do offer a lot of things. Like they're great. They're very vital for our planet. Yes.
So what's the purpose? I've got a theory about this. Because we talk about God made everything and God made it all.
I don't believe that.
I don't necessarily buy that. I believe he gave out the instructions and some things just weren't followed too well. It's sort of like if you're building a kingdom hall. I used to put it to witnesses this way. You're building a kingdom hall and you've been given instructions from Jehovah himself. And he told you how to put the toilet in. And he told you how to put the electricity in. And he told you to put all that stuff in and how to do it. But if you didn't do as Moses did and do just so and build the ark, what if you put the toilet on backwards? Because you all give credit to Jehovah. Who put the toilet in backwards? Was it Jehovah or was it you? So my point is that I believe he gave the instructions and through Christ Jesus to make everything. And doesn't mean that all the instructions were always followed. I have not figured out why the hell we need mosquitoes.
Yeah, that's what I
The
was going
little
to say.
blood-sucking vermin seem to embody
They're not
someone
vermin.
else to me.
They're not vermin.
Oh, they're like vermin.
Satan made snakes, but Satan technically was a snake.
Became a snake. I haven't
No,
found
not
to be.
technically.
I haven't found all
Fleas.
snakes to be. Yeah, fleas.
That's
Exactly.
a good one. That's a very good question.
Here's another good story. They're going to get me going on stories. As a kid living in Seattle, we don't have fleas here in North Dakota because it's too dang cold. I'm sure there's a few of them running around, but you don't have that problem.
Satan made snow.
And I'll agree with that one. In the form of a canopy.
Why do we live here?
In Washington, there's a huge flea problem in Western Washington. Not so much in Eastern Washington. Never had a problem with that in Idaho. Again, maybe the winters were too cold, but that is the issue in Western Washington. So my cousin's family went away on vacation. This is one of my stepdads, and they bombed their house. But my cousin, the daughter, shut her room when they left on vacation.
The bomb was for bugs.
Flea bomb. Yep. So
you got to clarify that.
Their house. They bug bombed their house, but she had closed her doors, her bedroom door. So guess where all the fleas went? Well, she comes home from vacation, opens up that door, walks in. Oh my God. They said that they just covered her. You could barely even see her because she had her shorts on.
All the fleas went into that bedroom.
And they just all mobbed her when she walked in. She just comes out screaming.
If the existence of aliens becomes... How do I get rid of that little heart?
There's a heart like right at the bottom right of the comments.
Something. How does that alter the religions of the world?
Yeah, I don't know. Would they just twist that into being aliens or being angels? I mean, because technically angels, by definition, are aliens.
Yeah, aliens.
They come from a different world and a different dimension. So, I don't know. I mean, if it might just adjust their understanding. New light, that would be new light from Jehovah.
That's great. That's a good question. I don't know.
That's just my 2 cents.
Aliens with big heads and eyes.
Big heads and eyes. I don't know. We got pretty many normal people with big heads around here.
Heads and eyes.
Organization is full of people with big heads.
Every time I think about aliens, that SNL skit.
I will endorse this.
You'll have to look it up if you don't know what that is. Just type in SNL alien something, and it's hilarious. And it's exactly the way
Cole's parking lot.
Sometimes you feel like in dealing with JW land.
When we were getting this fellowship, that skit was coming. Those skits were coming through, and it was absolutely a parallel, because the whole idea of this skit is these people have a wonderful experience. And, it was I was bathed in light, and they whisked me away and showed me my future, and all these things that were like, that's like witnesses. And then you're like, the other person's like, where the hell were you, Guan? Because I was just depantsed, and I got my underwear hung up in a tree as they drug me through the sky.
It's hilarious.
It's
so
funny. You've got to watch it and think about JW land in that regard.
And when you feel like nobody understands you and what you're going through and all the things, it's almost like a sense of relief comedically. Like, it's a good laugh, but it's also like you can resonate with it almost a little bit.
So if you are an ex-JW going through that, absolutely go
This
check
is
it out.
good. At one time, you were considering a lawsuit with Watchtower. Any update?
Yes.
That is a deep subject.
Yeah, so what we've found out is that the multitude of layers, now in the statute of limitations has gone away.
For us.
The multitude of corporate layers that you have to get through for one, and finding a lawyer that would take it on. So it's not as clear cut as the SA situation, CSA. where they have an obvious wrong. The authorities are kind of on your side in that wave. So you're not going to pick up a lawyer to go pro bono. We had a lawyer that was willing to do it. And he's like, I need 20K to start. And we'll just see how, we just need to keep it flowing. And that's why we put out that video, is to see what kind of support there was. Not that we would mind tossing 20K toward it, but I can't realistically afford to go after Watchtower and their myriad of lawyers who obviously have no problems lying and deceiving and flat out disobeying the courts. So that pretty much just died out with that. I mean, there's just no support. We'd love to help somebody else down that avenue of doing it, because it's not like it's not illegal. It is, but you still have to win, and you still have to do the battle. And it's not like it's you're not going to get. It's not going to be criminal. It's going to be civil, especially with the religious freedoms in this country. So I want to finish off that by saying that's a good point. We've got $1,000. What should we do with it? Maybe we should do we took some donations from you guys. We don't need the money as far as that goes. We were kind of doing it to see what kind of support there was. There's not enough. It's hard to get people to band together. It's funny because there are how many millions of ex-witnesses out there. If they all gave $1, there'd be enough to do it. We had some people that were very generous, $300. You know, some people that gave what they could that were we actually said this in that video we put out. Some people were very methodical. Well, you have this many viewers divided by this much, I'll give this much. And they actually mathed it all out in their head. And however they wanted to do it. But literally, if you had all the ex-witnesses just go, I'll give you $1, I'll give you $10, there'd be more than enough money to go after Watchtower for these issues, because there are 3 legal areas, and we actually go through them with that video if you wanted to go look it up. I think one of them was
contracts with minors.
Yep, minor contracts, because you're baptized into a contractual agreement as a minor. The next is
moral turpitude.
Yep, moral turpitude, which means that a government cannot say to you, these are what you need to put into your corporate. Even when you start if you go and you start a business and you start an LLC, you have to do your corporate. Why can't I think about it?
You mean like the piercing of the veil?
Right. But it's your corporate rules.
Oh, your articles of
incorporation. Yeah, you have to do those, right? So you have to do those articles of incorporation. So what you say, they can't make you do a certain thing, but you have to say what it is you do. And if you don't do it, then that's what's called piercing the corporate veil. So with Watchtower, their corporate whatevers are all of the things. They can't set the policies for you, but you have to live up to the policies you set. And the way they twist things to get you in, and then the way they twist things when they want you to just form and to be in line with the organization, are 2 different things. So for example, the big question in Isaiah 43, is it 43:10? You are my witnesses, says Jehovah. So my debate in that would be, and we were in the judicial committee, was, so are you Jehovah's Witness? Yeah, but not you're a member. Yeah, but not in the way you guys are viewing it. I'm a witness of Jehovah. You are my witnesses, says Jehovah. Therefore, I am in association with other brothers who are also witnesses who have done the same dedication in their life. Oh, so you're an associate now. Do you see the corporate mindset they got?
Membership.
So they play this line between corporation and non-corporation. There's the corporation, which we know it doesn't mean anything to witnesses until they want to use it to their advantage. But when the congregation, they run separately from the corporation. We all know that the corporate votes that they do, where you raise your hands and you vote for an elder or you do whatever, you know that that's all played out. It's just a big game. So anyway.
And the third one is fraud. Saying one thing and doing another.
Yeah.
And what's so annoying about that?
So there are legal bounds. The problem is you've got to have the funding to go after it.
Yeah. And I want to say that about like the Watchtower articles. Like there are bound volumes upon bound volumes since the beginning of Watchtower, right? And so they make a new article, and that's the amended article. Now we're going to go by this statement. Now we're going to go by this statement. Now we're going to go by this statement. Now,
But again,
and it can
all of
flip-flop
that, but
all they
all
want.
of that has nothing. They try to take that out of the corporate. They try to separate the two. The by the way, the governments don't view it that way. They separate the two, but the governments do not view them separated. So they don't see that. But the Watchtower plays this good switcheroo of hands. And you can't, just like in that screen, you can't really tell which one's which. That's exactly what the games they play. It's sort of like when they went to court and that Stephen Unthank down in Australia. Hi to our Australian friends down there. And Stephen Unthank took him to court. And they said about the faithful slave that it's just a theological arrangement, like Santa Claus
Easter Bunny,
or the Easter Bunny. It's a theological arrangement. In other words, it doesn't really exist to the governments. And it's this. What do you mean? It's a theological. Either they exist or they don't exist. Either they're the ones that we need to be obedient to, or are making the corporate decisions, or they're not. So,
yeah. But as far as one of the things you said earlier, I think one of the things that is difficult in the XJW community is gaining some unity. And people really are passionate about their story, about what they have gone through, or about their soapbox moment, or whatever they find valuable or passionate. And I'm not taking that away from that person. But when you're dealing with a lawsuit, you have to be on a unified front and get your emotions set aside and just look at the legal aspect of what's going on. And that was really challenging to try to gain some kind of unity among people, because everybody wants to talk about what they say, like shunning and disfellowshipping. That's starting to get a little bit more play in the legal realm.
Yes.
Because now Norway, for example, has lost it, right?
Yep.
And it could sweep Europe.
Yep. But that's a great point, because the sister, who is a lawyer, and I wouldn't call her unemotional by any means. I think she's a very
she's passionate,
in touch with her emotions. Yeah. But having that legal background, she just said, "Yeah, that sucks, but is it illegal?"
Right.
But is it illegal? Yeah, it sucks that you slept with your boyfriend and they shunned you, but is it illegal? Mm-hmm. So that can't be the issue, because it's not illegal. Here are 3 things that you can support that are illegal. And when those fall, maybe the others would go along, and something would go along with it. So it's about getting the traction to support those. But back to that point, we took donations from some of you guys, and then we matched it. We said whatever donations we got, we would match. And we got about $1,000. What should we do with it?
Yeah.
We don't, like I said, we don't need the money. So it's not, we've been too damn busy. Negligence on our part, I gather. But where should we put that money? We've thought about giving it to Mark O'Donnell, because he does a lot of, he stays totally neutral.
Legal things he's involved with.
Yep. And I'm sure that everyone is going to have something bad to say about somebody. So I'm sure that it's not like we're saying that he's the absolute squeaky cleanest in the whole wide world. We're not saying he's a saint. He's not one of the anointed, we're saying, right? And even if he was, hey, you know what? The apostles weren't so great either. But the point is that he does a lot of work in that realm. We've thought about other individuals who are even not in this country, who are doing some great work. The one thing we appreciate about Mark O'Donnell is he doesn't have a stance on his religious affiliation or lack of religious affiliation. We found some individuals that we really like what they do, but they are atheist supporters and vocal atheist supporters. That's not the issue that we want to align with. And that's why we say Mark O'Donnell seems to be one of those ones that's a shining example.
And even if he has viewpoints like that, he doesn't talk about that.
Yep,
he's completely neutral when it comes to that, because they're personal.
So it's not about what the person's viewpoints are personally. It's about what they
vocalize.
Well, not just vocalize. It's what they endorse or push.
Yeah.
It's just like, and we're going to name drop some people here. Just, I I think that Lloyd has done, a lot of great work, but he is so pro-atheist and he pushes that agenda that it makes no room for anybody else who believes anything differently. And instead of just making that not an issue, because I think that it's like we were having this discussion with somebody else, and I said, it has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with abuses. It has to do with Watchtower abuses and hypocrisy. That's the problems that we have here with Watchtower. It has nothing to do with whether or not you believe or your own personal agendas of atheism or your own personal agendas of a religion. And that's what I appreciate about Mark O'Donnell is even when he was sharing some screen time, I'll say it that way, with Lloyd Evans, whenever Lloyd would kind of get off on that tangent, at least when Mark is on there, he would kind of bring it back and say, well, actually the focus is this, this is the issue. And so that's, again, not saying everyone is squeaky clean, but we would certainly like your guys' input, especially those of you who have given about how you feel about Mark, or maybe there's somebody else that we're missing, or a cause that's doing well. I know there's another group that's made a lot of headway that we've talked with personally. Mark Martin's friend from
he's from Europe.
But he's done a lot of work in winning court cases and saying, hey, you have the right to disfellowship. But he makes a good legal, because we in our minds, disfellowshipping is shunning. But he goes, no, you have the right to disfellowship as your religion says. It's the shunning. Well, it's the same damn thing. But the legal mumbo jumbo is different, apparently, in their country, how they read that. The shunning is damaging to people. So whether or not,
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to add that in most countries and cultures, you have a right to religion.
Yeah.
So the human right to decide what you are going to say or do or believe is taken away.
And Watchtower takes that away, and that's so sad because we've seen how many Watchtower articles have we had where it's talking about, and this Catholic person studied the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses, and when they came into the truth, they had opposition from their Catholic family, and they even said, if you become a Jehovah's Witness, we will write you out of the will. I'm sorry, but that's like the pot calling the kettle black, because witnesses are just horrible at that. They're horrible. We know several families right now that are mounting opposition to them not joining another religion, but just questioning the JW hierarchy. And they're like, oh, you can't do that. We're going to write you out of the will. Well, how is that without, as the scripture says, without compulsion?
We got a few comments. I want to read this. So Mark does good work. Yeah, agreed. JW Watchtower building video studios now in New York and Aussie land to be done in year 2027. I think JWs will close Kingdom Hall soon and make it go online. That's been kind of the debate, huh?
Yeah.
Watchtower is not supposed to mess with human rights, healthcare, religion, choice.
Oh
yeah,
my
but
God,
they do.
Yeah, don't get me going on that healthcare where they actually set up in California. They actually set up a jab station.
Yeah.
That was about as politically charged as anything. Or where they were running around giving out these food boxes from the government. It literally had a letter from Trump in it. They're getting paid for these. They're literally getting paid for these. And you want to claim separate from the world?
Didn't they just take the Trump letter and just...
Yeah, they were saying it was from the governing body, but then they were told they can't take out them Trump letters.
Watchtower can legally tell a mother and father to not talk to the son or daughter.
Yeah, legally, debatably. But yeah, that's the thing that they claim, and they're in courts in that one Canadian video saying, oh, normal family relations continue. What are you talking about? What is this video that they just put out where the mother won't even answer a phone call from the daughter? Yeah, Barbara Anderson, she's done a lot of work too, but I think, no disrespect to her, but and what she's done. But obviously you want to be progressive. You want to be progressive with the ideas. And just to be honest, she's ending her life. Her life and her work is, and I'm not trying to belittle her and what she's done and coming forward. It took.
What do you mean she's ending her life? What do you mean
Well,
by
how
that?
old is she?
Well, she's still very active in the community.
Is she?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. We should give it a more serious look. I think I have seen her be a little bit more atheist than
I think, well, I'm not really even considering that aspect right now.
or not atheist, but pushing a certain religion. I will say that.
I would say I'm not saying that. Yeah, she's active. I think she's very active.
Okay.
I'm not saying that. I think she's very. This is just my viewpoint right now. I think she's very on to the CSA aspect only, and maybe that's wrong of me to say that, but I almost feel like maybe somebody that is a little bit more widespread in their court appearance or
Okay.
court
No,
whatever.
I'm sorry.
is,
Hold on. Just they interrupted us. They said contact Barbara Anderson for advice on that. Maybe she would know someone else.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
You know, and I'm
meant
not
advice
opposed
for money
to.
gift.
Yeah.
Also after COVID. So I'm just saying,
And we
I
do know
want-
some people that are more in regular contact with her. We really don't have. I've never contacted Mark O'Donnell. I think he commented once on one of our videos. I've never contacted Barbara Anderson. I've never contacted a lot of these other people. So, not that I have anything against them personally. I live my own life. You know, will you ever get over the abuse that you received from Jehovah's Witnesses? I would say no. Just like I will never get over the abuse I've received growing up. It's part of my being. However, I will move on from it. And so we've moved on from JW abuses, but we will never get over it. It'll always be a part of us. And I'm okay with that. I know some people may have a problem with that, but at least that's how I've dealt with my abuse. And I've helped Tiffany deal with her abuse in the past. Don't worry about moving on from it. Pack it up, put it in order, and then try to put it away in the closet so it doesn't haunt you. But you don't need to continually pull it back out if you've put it away in order. Is sort of my therapist 2 cents.
Okay. Also, after COVID reactions, all business got 25. Is that 25,000 or 2,500
25 something
per employee? So Watchtower got money for each Bethelite.
Really?
Oh, well, that was another money maker.
I wonder.
wasn't it?
You know, I wonder
Yes,
how much
this
that.
is true. Do you deal with trauma? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'll just read these. 25,000. That's a lot of damn money.
Yeah, I don't remember how much it was, but I know, for example, just in order to keep employees
Get like a PPP loan.
active, you get a PPP loan that you didn't have to pay back. I know somebody who got one of those. We started going through the paperwork for that.
I don't want to deal with that.
And then we're like, nah, anything from the government's got strings to it. I'd rather not. And so we skipped out on it.
We'll just be self-sufficient.
Yeah. Not needing anything from anyone.
Does anyone ever get over losing a leg?
No, I would say not. Absolutely.
We know
different.
somebody up here that has lost an arm and they get the pain still, like phantom. What do they call that? Phantom pain.
Yep.
I guess it's similar, right? So you're still going through that trauma and you have the phantom pain in an emotional way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Yeah, I think that's a very good statement. You know.
Yes, my job got business for each staff person. Heard it on NPR radio. Wow. Wow, they really raked it into their time period, didn't they?
Jeez. But it's funny is that I wonder if they got something for pioneers because they said, consider the career of pioneering. You know, they constantly push that.
Wow.
Yes, they did what? For pioneers? Is that what you're talking about, Jane?
Pioneer.
Yeah,
Oh,
wow. Suckers. Man, they're a bunch of scam artists. Oh, my goodness. No, not pioneers. Okay. Somebody else mentioned something about the abuse too. Asked a question. Oh, yes, this is true. You do deal with trauma, and always part of you. Yep. And I would say no, don't shy away from that. Accept that it's part of your being, and quite honestly, I would say it's your superpower. I see through things that are right off the bat. I can just see right through it, and a lot of people don't see it. And I
Red
think,
flag.
yeah, and growing up, it's like even one of the hardest things to do is see when people are kissing your ass. So we all notice that guy who's kissing the boss's ass, right, at work, and you're like, yeah, that guy's such a suck up, right? And the boss doesn't see it. One of the superpowers I think that you gain is you recognize that because you don't, at least I don't, I shouldn't speak for everybody else. I don't appreciate compliments. If somebody compliments me, it doesn't register at all. It just doesn't. I think you've got an ill motive, so it doesn't register.
My radar is sharp.
Yep, that's right. It's a superpower. So it's like if somebody sends a comment, it's like, oh, that's nice. But it's
over complimentary.
Yes, but it becomes over flattery. Man, it's like the scripture says, you could pick it out fast, and you're not my friend. If you're over complimentary, so the commendation sandwich, it's like, oh, you're just gonna feed me that line of bullshit, huh? Okay. So what do you want me to say? Or what do you want me to do? You've got a motive here. Just come out and tell me what it is. But yeah, so I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't do is notice people that call out people that are sucking up to them personally, and it just gives me some grossness personally.
Ick gives you the ick.
Yeah.
That's more.
I'd rather you tell me how it is, how you think. I remember the first time we're on a roof, I'm teaching a guy to roof, and he's normally very soft spoken, right? This is a witness. And we're banging on some squares, and I'm riding his ass, man. And he's because he's hitting below. He's getting low nails, if you know what that means. It means it's going to show the nail when you nail the next one on. I'm like, man, your nails are low. Your nails are low. And finally he gets up. Your nails are still low. Pull it up. Pull it up. Pull it up. I keep saying it because I'm throwing for him, or I'm doing something else on the roof while watching him. And finally he gets sick of it. He stands up. And he says, well, maybe blah 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 blah, whatever it was. I'm like, hey, it's nice to see some spirit out of you. Grab your cord and pull you some slack so it's not pulling your gun down. So I'd rather you tell me what you're really thinking, because it wasn't until he told me what he was really thinking that he could get some accurate guidance on, even from me to help him. So that honest feedback, or that, as I like to say, confrontation absolves contention. That's another one to think about for a minute, because people hate confrontation, and then contention just festers. But confrontation absolves contention. So that's the way I prefer to be. And you got more comments than you want to say?
Well, all the world is run like Watchtower now. All the world is a stage.
It is.
For sure.
And that's, I'm going to talk about politics for a second, and not be political in this country, at least. And maybe if you're from another country, you could see the same type of thing. And we say this often. Tiffany likes to say a lot. Go ahead.
What did I say?
Wings.
Oh, with the left wing and the right wing, it's just the same bird, but different wings.
Yeah, it's different wings of the same bird.
They don't fly right.
And I personally think some of the things that some of the candidates do, and don't get me wrong, Trump probably doesn't play well with others, but a lot of the things they'll do, it's like it's not middle enough, it's not mainstream enough to apply to both sides. It's like they'll purposely go back and forth, between this bird and this wing and that wing, so the bird can maintain control. The
flapping is just over flapping.
But what I'm saying is that you're following what they are. Here's a perfect example. This is Canadian. This is Canadian weather statement. The Canadian weather statement, Tiffany, do you remember verbatim what that said?
No.
The Canadian weather statement came out and said there's going to be this is a high smoke alert for just smoke in the air.
Oh, this was just a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
We've had smoke from Canada coming down here. Pregnant women, it lists all the things like, you need to be
Be vigilant, basically, if you
Stay
have
inside, blah, blah, blah.
if you've got a week,
Serious
whatever.
health issues. If you're a pregnant woman, pregnant person, blah, blah,
If
blah.
you're elderly,
Yeah.
pregnant woman, pregnant person. How do you not see, and this is a governmental organization, this is a governmental organization creating division.
Yeah.
They are purposefully creating division with that statement.
They didn't have to
Because
say that at
you
all.
didn't have to say that at all. All you had to say, simply, without causing offense to either side, but that's not the point. They want to rile you up and create division. And that's what they do. Instead of saying, high smoke alert, those who are sensitive, like the elderly, those who are pregnant, blah, blah, blah. That's all they had to say. But no, they purposely said pregnant woman or pregnant person. You know, then you get people that are on there that are debating the biology and whether or not you can get pregnant as a man.
The
or blah,
thread
blah,
is
blah.
so long.
And then it just turns into a big argument. And that's what they were trying to do. They're trying to create division. The bird is creating division with its wings so you can fight. So that just like Hitler, he sends off one statement over here. I've commented about this before, and he'd send off another statement over here. And when there'd get to be bickering, then he could come in and settle the issue. So everybody looked at him as the authority. And it's no different with the governments that you're dealing with today. That was Canada. Guarantee it's happened here in the U.S. as well. Probably where you're at now. You got these two political ideologies that they just set up, and they create division so that they can come in and be the hero and be the savior and settle it and be looked at as the authority whom you continually will hopefully serve, even if you're just, it's like one guy who ran the presidential campaign in 1973 for a third party said to us,
That's a great
if
comment.
you're fighting against it, you're in it. If you're fighting against it, you're in it. More comments. Go ahead.
Different cheek and the same arse. That's perfect. That's perfect.
And what comes out the middle is never any good. Whether it's a bunch of hot air or a bunch of solidity.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that's what I meant. We're just being real with you. We're letting this linger. Sorry. We're just hanging out,
as you
guys.
were going off on your little thing about government, you know, and how
my soapbox moment.
Watchtower is the same.
Oh, absolutely they are.
Every single little idiosyncrasy, their beard rule, their pants on women can wear pants now, all the little
how many times have you sat down in a Watchtower and this week they're going off the issue, and the very next week or two they're going on the other side of the issue, and I was always like, why don't they just melt the two into one article so it can be balanced? Because they don't want balance. They want to create division. So that way you have to go to the elders, go to the circuit overseer, go to for clarification, yep. Creating them as the authority. This is what you've all been sold into.
Right.
Oh, man.
Right.
What other comments we got?
Let me think here. Okay, let's go back up here. Okay, hold on. Oh, yeah, lots of XGWs was that January 6th insurrection for ex-President 45. I was shocked. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
So by
the way, I don't. This isn't a political statement. It's just one of common sense. If you think an insurrection is without guns and guys with big ass buffalo heads, that's not an insurrection. And by the way, in this country, I always laugh at the Second Amendment people. Oh, right to bear arms, right to bear arms. You lost your right to bear arms decades ago. Your right to bear arms, read it, was to rise up against your government if they got too big for their britches. You can't do that. Can you have a tank? Can you have a bomb? And I've heard some naysayers say, oh, you can't say that because the military can't be used against its own people. Oh, really? Really? What do you think the National Guard is? The National Guard is strictly for maintaining peace and security inside the borders. And guess what? They get tanks and bombs and they can be immobilized by the president however he sees fit. So don't give me that crap. You lost your Second Amendment rights a long, long time ago. So how much effort you'd have in sedition against the nation remains to be seen. And by the way, it's so stupid. People will go and it's like in France. You see this in France? I'm going off in many soapboxes. I know it. But you see this in France. They're going in there spraying all their government buildings with, farmers and their, urine manure throwers, right? And it's like for fertilizer, they use those for fields and they use them to throw on government buildings. Whose money do you think they're going to use to clean that up? Voters' money. Not non-voters, but citizens' money. They're going to use your money. They don't care. They don't care. The only thing they care about is the old, Marie Antoinette scene. That's it. Until off with their heads happens, they don't care. All they're doing is you're spending your money to clean things up. Oh, politics are so ridiculous. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, there's so many good comments, but this one, Watchtower is a type of government, got so many rules. New thing is all adults got to go over the Bible story book for children chapter by chapter next summer. Degrading.
Ooh, my book of Bible stories. You learn from the faithful slave.
Good point. I heard that, Jane. Good info from preppers and be ready. Store up food and water. And I think we have civil war here in a few weeks, sad to say.
Yeah, it'll be interesting how it turns out. But like I said, there's more. Here's what I'll say about that. It is a stage
and game, though. So
it's what?
It's like they were commenting about the stage. It's all a stage.
It's a theatrical spectacle. But here's what I'll say about
all the world is a stage.
Yeah, exactly. The scripture says that's a theatrical spectacle, which is a stage. I want to talk about that though, about civil war in this country, where it would come from. Because, and this isn't a diminishing in a comment, it's just a statement. In this country, at least from the right wing's perspective, right? So they're against big government. They're against, government getting in your face, socialism type issues. By the way, this country here is not a democracy. It's a democratic republic. And debatably, it's a democratic republic. I would argue it's a capitalist republic. And I say that because you have to have the money to run for office in the first place, and you get that from lobbyists. And the lobbyists are put forth by corporate entities. So that makes it capitalist. So it's a capitalist republic. Your votes matter little. It's like people say, well, are you going to vote? I'm in North Dakota. What the hell point is there in voting?
There's a red stake.
It's going to be red. I'm going to vote, Democrat. Is it going to work? No. The electoral votes are already established. That's why they always talk about these 6 or 9 swing states, where the only places in this country where your votes actually matter. Take out the gerrymandering and all this other crap they play. But it's a corporate republic, not a democratic republic. That's what I would argue. Anyway, what was the statement though? Going back to
which one? About
the comment about
the
Civil War. Here's what I'll say about most often you think about Civil War coming from the right hand side because they've got their Second Amendment pew-pews, right? So here's the deal. Taxes. Government being in your life. How much taxes do you pay? Do you think? Oh, I pay 30%. No, you don't. You pay about 80% to 90% in taxes. 80% to 90% in taxes. The old frog in the boiling water is a good analogy, because
we're paying
you pay your 25 to 30%
ton of taxes.
But guess what? You're also paying the 25 to 30% that everyone you hire, everyone you buy the profit on, they're marking that up because that's part of their bottom line, paying the taxes on those things. So they're marking that up. That's 60% right off the top. Now you're taxed for your car, you're taxed for your property, your houses. In some cases, there are states that tax you for your property tax. There are taxes on the fuel. There are taxes on your food. and some states, at least on the rest of the things you buy, you are taxed 80 to 90%. If that doesn't make you want to grab all of your pew-pews, rise up to the government, and take it back by sedition in your buffalo mask, then nothing will. Nothing will. It's just a big bunch of big-headed, puff-chested posturing that means nothing.
Was it chicken cocks?
Bunch of
Bunch of cocks.
roosters. Next.
So they said this will happen in Texas, California, Nevada, the Civil War. Watchtower sells fear constantly. You will never finish high school in this system, LOL. People don't read the documents that govern them. I love your intelligent conversation about all this excellent job. Thank you. I think the sanctuary cities will have it. Going to be a mess. California, New York, Chicago. Well, that's what I'm saying. We were saying as far as the urban versus rural divide line.
Yeah,
like they have chaos in those cities.
But they've got most
do.
of the people, so they control most of the votes in this country. And again, we are not political, but we are not stupid as to what's going on. I take that back. I'm absolutely political. I used to say this when I'd go out in service. Are you political? I'm absolutely political. Oh, really? Who's your candidate? Christ Jesus. Somebody who's not going to be bought into all this crap, that's for sure. Even Trump. It's funny because the dynamics of the Trump side of the argument right now is very interesting because just recently Kennedy, who was a Democrat, now sided with Trump, right? So what's interesting about that is that he was an independent, historically a Democrat, but in order to run, he didn't have support of the party. He was running as an independent. Well, guess what Trump started out with? An independent. Granted, he played with being a Democrat and a Republican in his past political affiliations. But when he was running, he was first running as an independent. But then he realized, if I'm going to get any support,
pick a side.
Especially from the corporate entities, the capitalist society of the capitalist republic we are in, I need to get the support. So I need to choose a side. And he picked Republican, and that's when he got the support of the Republican Party and became, in essence, the Republican Party. So it's an interesting dynamic that now he has another independent. And this going forward, interesting political just observation. Again, I'm not political. I'm not voting. I'm not endorsing either. But it's interesting going forward. This may be the first opportunity for an independent to have play, because if Trump wins and he gets the support of Kennedy, politics has strings. It always has strings. No doubt there have been backroom conversations between Kennedy and Trump. You endorse me for these next 4 years. It's a short stint. I will endorse you going out. Whether he becomes a Republican or whether he becomes an independent going forward would be interesting. It would be the first time a third party is in this country, which was political parties were something, if you read any of the literature of the founding fathers of this government, they would tell you not to form political parties. They actually absolutely advised against it. Of course, it doesn't mean nothing, just like the rest of the Constitution. But it was interesting you said that the Civil War would happen in Texas, Nevada, and what else did you say? Oklahoma?
California. Well, they're saying sanctuary cities are going to be a mess.
No. Before that.
Yeah, Texas, California, Nevada, the Civil War. That's what somebody.
And I don't know why they would need a Civil War because they pretty much run the show there. Abbott has been pretty much shipping out all the.
Texas has been pushing out immigration. But the cities like Dallas and the cities are rough.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean for lack of trying. So I'm just trying to figure out what you're meaning by that would be the Civil War, because they pretty much run their states the way they want to anyway.
I guess we'll have to.
But the sanctuary cities.
It's going to be a mess in those sanctuary cities.
Well, and what I'm worried about, I shouldn't say worried, but I'm watching. What I'm concerned with is what happened the last time when Trump won. Democrats were more apt to be going out, or at least when things weren't going the Democrats' way.
They riot and do things.
There were all sorts of riots and things going on. So that's what I'm wondering.
When the violence picks up, you mean? Do you think it'll be the other way, where if it goes the Democrat leaning, Republicans won't have a
I haven't
mix?
seen any Republicans burning down buildings on local Main Street and busting out windows of small businesses. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I don't know.
However,
I know there are some people
that's
that the
what I-
economy is.
And again, I have zero political affiliation. I'm just saying what I've observed. However, when Democrats don't get their way, I see that often their way is to shout over the top of you as opposed to have a debate.
Mm.
And so, and again, I have zero political affiliation. I don't have a, as Prince said, I don't have a dog in this race.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Why
care.
not,
I vote
Prince?
for somebody else. I vote for Jesus. And I believe that shit's going to hit
Okay.
the fan eventually. And
This comment right here: if you're hooked on gambling, you pay even more taxes, and the beat goes on. If you're like, yeah, I imagine you're taxed crazy amounts.
yeah, and I wonder
That's
if
all the
that's a
risk.
euphemism they're saying there. And the gambling, I mean, because the stock market is gambling anymore, and you pay the piper when you win.
I don't take risks. I won't even take the risk on a science project that's been left in the refrigerator.
Well, everything's a risk. Business itself is a risk.
No, it's an interesting conversation. And going back to Watchtower, I see them doing so much game playing, corporate. Their rules change because of government, and I know they have, themselves spread out globally, and so they've got to play the government game with many different types of government, which means they change lots of rules.
Yeah. And somebody said that before, Watchtower is government. Absolutely. Religion is government. In fact,
Yeah.
I believe that religion and the endorsement of religion by government is simply a backup catch-all. So the ones that we couldn't catch by way of legal means, criminals, whatever, we're going to have a backup plan to try and reform these people, because we can't catch them and get them into our prison reform systems, which that's a whole other conversation on whether or not it's actually reform or just another corporate entity in itself. But since we couldn't reform them through prisons and we couldn't catch them, let's endorse another sort of reform through the government of religion. So you can go to these pastors, you can confess your sins, and hopefully they will get you to change your ways, and we'll give them immunity from telling us what the people that have talked to them have done in the form of penitent privilege.
Penitent privilege.
So it's just an interesting conversation as far as that goes. Yes, religion is absolutely government.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely government. And that's why I say I'm political. I'm all about government. And that's what pisses me off about so many people that say they're anointed among JWs. What are you going to do when you get to Christ's kingdom? I'm going to be with Jesus. Oh my God, you got to be kidding me. You haven't been able to manage your own life, and yet you're going to rule. You can't even manage your own life in this system, and you're going to rule. Oh my God, we're in deep shit, because you can't even figure out what to do with your own life. As the scripture says, if you can't handle your own household, how are you going to handle what is another's?
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. There's a comment that I want to say or highlight, but you said something about government is a religion. But yet when you read those scriptures in Revelation, religion is in bed with government. So how does that work? Because
they're in bed with the governments of this world.
Mm-hmm.
So
but they run themselves because they run themselves.
It's the old debate of it's like, we know that there's a government in France, right?
Right.
We know there's a government in Germany and Russia, whatever else. But what do I have to do with going on with that government if I'm a citizen of the United States? It's the debate that we had with our neighbor. We're doing our roof, and he says, "Are you going to vote?" And I said, "No." What for? He says, "Well, you're part of this government." I said, "No, I live under Christ's government. I have a whole different set of rules I follow." Yes, that government tells me I need to follow the rules of this country too. But he also says, leave your lights on. Leave your lights on so that when I come by and I see that blood on the doorpost and I fly my plane over, I see those lights, I won't drop bombs there. So my affiliation is with that government. Obey the government with your in, as long as it doesn't disagree with me. But when it does disagree with me, you side with me. That's a form of government. But it's a government, and this is one thing I made a comment on, and an elder in our hall, an older elder said, that just struck me different than anything else. That the Christ's kingdom rules from within, not without. Not from the outside, it rules from within. I am ruled by Christ's government from the inside, not from a governing body or some elders. I'm ruled by the Christ from the inside, not from the outside. So if you want to consider a government, my government tells me that, yes, I need to follow this government. But what do I have to do with France and their voting and their politics? Nothing. I can observe it. Same with this country. I happen to live here, so I can observe it more closely than I can France per se, or Russia. But what do I have to do with voting for a government? And if I believe that my government is coming and he's going to take over that government, I better dang be sure that I don't do as I asked my neighbor. If I get involved as an ambassador in this country, if I am an ambassador, and the scriptures talk about being ambassadors, if I am an ambassador for a different country, for example, Russia or whatever, and I vote in this country's politics and get involved in this country's politics, what do you call that? He's like, that's sedition.
Treason.
That's treason. I'm like, exactly. If I truly believe that Christ's kingdom is coming and is going to make a difference, and especially if you believe it's going to happen in this lifetime, which I don't, but if you do, even if you don't, but especially if you do, if you believe it's getting so bad that it's going to happen in your lifetime, you definitely wouldn't want to be committing treason on the country that you know is going to be attacking where you're being an ambassador. That's all I'll say about that. But yeah, it's a government. Religion is a government.
The comment that I'm highlighting right now says Norway didn't say they couldn't disfellowship and shun, just that they couldn't get government money. And isn't it funny that as soon as the money dropped, all of a sudden now the rules are starting to get a little bit tweaked.
And that's the
because
way.
That's what's important is the money.
And this is the way the West works. And it's the way Watchtower works. I've often said that Watchtower's positions are money. They treat those as money. They hold out this carrot for you. And if you do this, well, then we'll let you run mics.
Reaching out is like getting a promotion.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's right. And
My next promotion.
You get more money, which is privileges. So yeah, absolutely. And it, but this individual that we were speaking about wasn't Norway. Where is he from? What's his name? Do you remember his name first? Pascal. Pascal, if you happen to know him.
I'm trying to remember
has a
where
group.
He's from.
I don't remember what country he's from. Maybe somebody's watching that knows can remember.
But, I can find out though.
But they've done a fabulous job, and he used the shun word in opposition to the
Greece. Maybe I don't think it's.
Nope,
Greece.
it's not Greece. Anyway. The shun word in opposition to the disfellowshipping word. He just pretty much split the hair there and let them have their disfellowship word and brought out the shunning that the courts understood.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Whose agreement are we talking about here? Rick?
Their agreement. Robin says that's their agreement. What do you mean? You're asking what's
No, I'm trying to get back to here. Rick.
I don't know who
Fearson
Rick
said it will be 500, but must get reservation.
I'm right here. Sure. the first week of August in year 2025, Rick is having an XJW convention at the Hilton in Boston.
I see.
And you have to
5
get a
room.
reservation because there's a limited number.
Right.
I don't know who that is. I was going to look up who that is.
Yeah, and there, to be fair,
I couldn't be in a room with 500
there
people.
are a whole lot of XJWs who are doing a whole lot that have just come on the scene since we've been disfellowshipped. And I literally haven't watched a video in a year, just being honest.
It's been quite a while, yeah.
Like I said, do you ever get over it? No, I would say no. It's part of your being. That's part of trauma. You move on from it, but it is part of who you are, and you will constantly come back to it. So when do you ever get over it? Never. If you're just being disfellowshipped, and be okay with that. It's your superpower. Accept it and use it for good.
We really do need to get more organized with, I shouldn't say more organized. I should say organized and prioritize we've never formally had a video or series of videos like we say we were going to do about our story and how it's unfolded. And,
it still is a shining example to this day of the depths of witness manipulation.
We tried to start it this spring, and I don't know what happened, but it was like, we literally sat in front of the laptop and we started, and it was like 2 hours later, this just doesn't, something happened to where it was like, no, we got to wait till spring.
It's so convoluted. It's like, so one, being in this room, we have better light during the day. And so we wanted to make sure this is our vestibule is like a 300 square foot room that's off the front of our house. It's an enclosed porch, basically.
And it's all,
but it's all glass. Windows and has lights, of nice natural light. And that makes a big deal because I don't know, when it gets low light, it gets grainy and it's a distraction. So we kind of wanted to do it then. And then we got busy. And then when we finally did start doing a video, it just becomes so convoluted. And how do we go about this? Because there's backstory.
And I think we decided that the best form is just to start at the timeline and just go through the timeline. And I have things marked in a calendar and the timeline.
Just to open our calendar and start reading through it. And if we need to go back through, we can go back through some of those things. So that's what we plan on doing. I'm sorry that we're such, as the Apostle Paul said, who is not weak and I am not weak. Mm-hmm. So
every time I get on here, I'm like, we need to do this. We need to prioritize the story and just get it out there. And I think what's sad is when we start cracking the books open, so to speak, it's like all of it starts to flood back into your mind and back into your heart, where you can set it aside and be like, okay, life moves on, you do the things. But I tend to forget things, and I don't want to forget things.
Yeah. And events in life. And I don't say time heals all wounds. I'll buy that for a second. I say events in time can make you forget things. And events in time can also put distance between you and that. I always use maybe I've told this illustration before. I use the illustration of a box. When was the last time you stubbed your toe? Or have you ever stubbed your toe? I think I usually start out with, and you're like, oh yeah, I've stubbed my toe. When was the last time? Mm-hmm. Odds are, unless it's, been the last week, you aren't going to remember it a week or two. You're not going to remember it. You're just going to remember, I really stubbed my toe bad that one time, because enough events have happened between here and then that you've you've become desensitized to it. And I hope that would be the way it is with Watchtower 2, is that you just become a little bit detached. You can look at it in the third person.
It's almost like it's somebody else's life.
Yeah. That you went through.
But yet you emotionally take it all on because it was you, So, I mean, I guess I really do want to do that. And it's like, when you have a box of things that you had up in the closet and it gets brought down, or somebody has taken it. In this case, somebody literally took a box down from the closet and chucked it on the ground, and now I've got to clean it all up to some degree. it's like it sat on my dining room table for so long, and I need to just organize it, put it away, and put it back in the closet. That's what it's in the way. It really is, you know.
It is. Somebody had mentioned about symbolism, something about the curtains behind us.
Take the time. What did they say? I'm not against you two. Please take the time to look at the subliminal messages in the curtains behind you. Not sure if you're aware. I don't know what that means. What subliminal message?
When we are even aware of some and we just ignore it.
What
It's
is
like,
it? I don't know what they're talking about.
to me, it's just a curtain. It's a curtain.
Is it like grainy? I mean,
could there be some symbolism and some fleur-de-lis back there or something? I've got fleur-de-lis on my fence. It's just
don't apologize. Do what you can do. Your videos are more conversational than most. I know too much flattery. No, that's fine.
No, it's the flattery where it's there. You've got something to gain. Nothing on here. Nobody has anything to gain. But yeah, as far as symbolism goes, we've got upside down pineapples that hangs from some of our rooms that are cast iron. I thought they looked cool. That's why I hung them up there. People are like, so what does that mean? Are you guys swingers? Oh my God, geez, it's just a freaking pineapple. It's a decor, you know. Or we've got
these. Supposed to be a symbol of hospitality, I thought.
Yeah, a pineapple is, but if it's an upside down pineapple, oh, now it's your swingers. Oh, geez, come on. Does everything got to be a symbol? The rainbow. The rainbow is supposed to be a symbol of peace. Now it's a symbol of freaking you're homosexual. I mean, it just goes on and on, the symbolism thing. So we don't pay too much attention to symbolism. I appreciate that it may have meant something somewhere else, but it don't mean nothing to us.
So there was some more like, sorry, I might my notification change. Rick from Six Screens. He's having an XJW convention next August in Boston. I might go.
Well, I hope it turns out better than the joke that they had on October 31st, which was the dumbest day in the world, that they chose to go get 13 people and go march on the Capitol. You know, if you're going to pick a day to do an XJW thing, don't pick Halloween, for God's sakes. It just is dumb. It's just dumb. I'm sorry. That's not the wine talking. It's me saying that is just a dumb idea. Don't purposely alienate Jehovah's Witnesses who may otherwise listen to what you're saying. What else you got?
Just they were having a little bit of conversation like about that convention, but I'm just reading. I'll go back and listen to the beginning of the video when you went over Elder's Manual. Most people are trying to make a living. No subliminal message. It is a curtain. The person sees something in their art view. Just great to hear from you both. Hugs to you both. There are faces in it. Yes, you are right about the rainbow. October meeting to walk at White House. I think it was so could wear masks to hide. The protest was good.
You can wear it.
Nothing to me, but it was humorous. Oh.
Yeah, so the whole thing, I get, you can wear a mask anyway. I mean, geez, people are walking around wearing, in some cities, still wearing just a normal COVID mask, right?
Can you imagine they showed up October 31st looking like Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yeah, they should.
Dressed up?
All with elders masks, Maybe they could put on a fox mask. That would be more apropos. We could play is it Fox or the Wolf? Kevin McFree and his
the wolf. The wolves were the elders.
The Dubtown.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, the date just automatically lends, and then you're going to get somebody inevitably who is not understanding the whole idea of it, and they come, and I don't know, I wasn't there, I didn't pay any attention to it, but they just can't. I'm sure somebody showed up in some stupid costume. I'm just sure of it.
I don't know.
There's always somebody in the group, and then it just automatically turns off witnesses for who would be listening to you otherwise,
It's like a deterrent. Yeah.
JW Elders Manual and the contract Bethelite sign was shocking. Yeah, even as pioneers, you sign a contract. I can't imagine all the checks and boxes that are in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dubcon is amazing. So just real quick, if you can just state what are some of the crazy things? Was it just very involved for Bethelite to sign the contract? I mean, we owe you nothing when you're done. When we kick you out on your arse, you get nothing and you won't blame us for it. I mean,
The next annual meeting is a month away. Any predictions for New Light? I think possibly allowing birthdays or no more door to door.
I would say no more door to door first.
Poverty contract. Oh yeah, the vow.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, the vow
for
of poverty.
Sure.
Yep.
The New Light situation. I'm not really sure about the birthdays
So
because
hold on, I want to talk about that vow of poverty because I
sure.
know that some COs, I think of Newman Zeron, and either he was lying or he was being not revealing everything, but apparently he had, or at least he said he had a very good business before, and he didn't want to go into CO work. Well, I guess that's different than a Bethelite, but they sign a vow of poverty as well.
Circuit overseers do.
But yet he had money in the bank from being
before.
yeah, supposedly.
I'm curious about that. Of course, a lot of circuit overseers get really good green handshakes.
Yeah, but I don't know that they go much more. It's not like you're going to retire on green handshakes.
No.
I'll give you that they make some good income doing that, and they can spend it on, whining and dining their lifestyle.
But they always have like new technology and really great suits and
yeah, exactly. But that's not. Yeah. It's easy to have that stuff that the organization makes you have.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like you're seeing the CEOs wear Rolexes, like you do the governing body, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's so funny because there was a CEO that we had that was like, I wouldn't drink a Pepsi while I was in Africa because they
Coke.
really valued a Pepsi or a Coke.
It was Coke.
Yeah, whatever it was. And so she wouldn't drink one around the brothers because they didn't have much money. And you got brothers wearing Rolexes on the stage. And video in front of freaking millions of people. Thousands of people, if we be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, the door-to-door work is already dead. I mean, pretty much the only ones going out anymore are pioneers, and we know how effective they are.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Most of them anyway.
We're so far removed. We were removed sort of in a way because of being so far away, even though we were so involved, if that makes sense.
We have not, before we moved here, we would talk about how the last time this unassigned territory was worked was 10 years ago. And in the years that we were here, it was only worked once in partiality to where they tried to actually complete it. And that was just, swinging by, not fully worked, but just stuffing tracks and doors. We haven't seen a witness up here since we've been disfellowshipped. It's been 5 years, 6 years.
6 years.
I've barely seen a witness at all in 6 years.
I wonder about unassigned. I mean, COVID changed a lot of things, but I wonder about like unassigned territory groups, if they've gone out and done unassigned.
That's a good point because they're not even doing the ministry inside their territories now. If I cannot imagine, because before the big thing was, and I know because I did the territories, revamped the territories, which was another whole insulting thing they did.
Okay.
But the CEO would come through and look at the territories each time to make sure they were worked within a year, because that was the whole deal. If the territories were not worked within a year, they would send them off to unassigned territory, which made no sense because it was so dumb. Because in our congregation, well, you weren't able to get to these in a year. I want to make sure we get to all these in a year. Why? You guys have become land barons. If you accept the territory, you have to work it. Then you're going to give it back to unassigned territory where they're not going to work it in 10 years. I mean, it's just corporate. It's dealing with corporate dumb and desk jockey pencil pushers that don't have no knowledge of what's going on in the actual field on the floor, so to speak.
Okay, we got a few more comments here.
Okay.
The governing body, those government bodies, I think governing body is what you meant, get about 80,000 annually.
I don't know what where you're getting that number. I'm not saying it's not true, but I would say it's sort of like Trump told Xi Jinping. he said, "You're the king."
Mm-hmm.
And Xi Jinping said, "No, I'm the president." And Trump responded to him, "You're president eternally. That makes you king." And that's the way the governing body is. They control all of the faithful slave. This goes back to the Stephen Unthanked video and the lawsuit that he brought against witnesses. The faithful slave controls all the assets. The faithful slave controls all the assets, but they changed that to where the governing body, the representative of the faithful slave, controls all the assets. I'm sorry. If there's an $80,000 real number, that's just in paper for the government for some stupid tax reason, because they control all the billions of dollars if what they say is true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They never come to my area. That's a benefit. Watchtower rules do not apply to everyone. We had an elder medical doctor in my Kingdom Hall, and he never went out in field service. He was in charge of the school, but could never make the meetings. Go figure. He probably donated a lot of money, so he was like paid his way to do that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as they say, it's sort of like they tell you exactly who they are by when they tell you what they're not. So, for example, I remember an elder told me, "Well, it's not a good old boys club." Oh, it's exactly what it is.
That's projection.
It's exactly what it is. So it's like, oh, so it's a good old boys
So it
club.
is.
Yeah.
Why would that even come up into your conversation?
Yeah. So when they tell you what they're not, yeah, you know what they are.
A month ago, I saw a cart, and it had been since before COVID that I saw a JW in the field.
Huh.
See, that's interesting.
But but the cart witnessing isn't even witnessing anymore.
JW.org.
Yeah, that's right. Go to JW.org. Peanuts, get your crackers, crackers and peanuts. JW.org. They don't. There's no witnessing. They encourage you not to have conversations anymore. Even.
Okay. I went to the convention last Saturday in Long Beach, California.
I'm sorry.
There was 4,000 in attendance, 4,001 in attendance. The convention center can hold 13,500. When I used to go before 2020, there was always 11 to 12,000.
That's what we were talking about earlier too. Yeah, it was like, God, it felt like it was packed, and now it's like just dead. Yes. So I can see them getting rid of and what's so funny is they say, "We've had such and such growth." Well, where's the proof in the pudding? Because the pictures ain't showing it. No. This is like the arguments about how many people show up to the inauguration in the governments, because the pictures aren't supporting what you're saying.
Is it AI?
Yeah, maybe they need to hire some AI and do some Photoshop.
We had 2 people get attacked in daylight in the grocery store by homeless folks trying to rob them. These are not JW, just average citizens. Oh. Members are slowly leaving and baptizing little kids 8 years old is so silly. Truly is.
It's a crime is what
Contract with minors. That's wrong. They make exceptions. Look at Serena Williams, tennis star. She baptized, but holding the torch at Olympics last month.
Yeah. Right. But you know what? These people aren't trying to do any hierarchical climbing, ladder climbing. It's the same thing with that model. Who's that model?
Roca?
Anyway, whatever.
Coco.
It's the same thing. It's like she's up there and she's all posting JW stuff. She ain't got no clue what it's like to be a JW. It's like it's like Hollywood trying to talk about what the American life is like. They don't know. They have no clue about what the real people go through. And it's the same thing with Serena Williams, or they don't know what the average JW goes through. They got no clue. Just dump your money in the coffer and, shut up and don't show up to meetings.
Right.
Don't rock our boat and just put money in the coffer.
Yeah. I have on my storm door, I have a decal that says no soliciting. Seems to work.
Yeah, that worked to some witnesses and some it didn't. I mean, you must be in an area where are they even going door to door anymore? So
that's the question. Like, is it going to be eliminated? I mean, and then are they going to turn? Like, what was the statement in the Watchtower so long ago where it talked about the door-to-door work, and it would be eliminated, like if the warning work would be.
Yeah, they were almost setting up for that. Yeah. Remember that, where they're talking about there will be a time when the warning work will be over. I'm sorry, but I mean, to drop that card is a whole nother game. It's easier just to transition to something else, because once you drop that card,
How do you take it back?
you can't take it back. That means like
Mhm.
the end is imminent. You can't,
Maybe
you
their end
can't
is
generational, shuffling that one off.
Is that sort of the Kool-Aid, though? This is interesting. Have you noticed the offshoot religions from JW? One is called the 2x2 and another End of Times. But isn't that the case? Because isn't Jehovah's Witnesses an offshoot from?
Protestantism, really?
No, I mean it could be, but like Russellites, or what do they call them,
Yeah.
the Bible students?
Yeah.
Isn't
They still exist today.
I mean, isn't JW's offshoot?
And I don't know that were the 2x2s, because I've talked with 2x2s before.
Latter-day Saints.
Were the 2x2s, and LDS came about the same time. At least Mormons did. LDS transitioned later, through political means inside. They're an offshoot of Mormons, but Mormons were kind of back then. But you also think about Seventh-day Adventists were kind of in that same early 1900s, late 1800s ball of religions that sort of splintered out. But somebody was mentioning the 2x2s. I've talked to them, but I don't know. Are they a splinter off of Witnesses? I don't know that they were.
I haven't heard of them.
You haven't heard of the 2x2s?
Or End of Times. I don't really pay attention to a lot of that stuff. No.
I've heard of the 2x2s just because we went out in service and we knocked on a couple of doors and we ran into a small locale of a group of 2x2s.
I'll look it up.
And we had some brief conversations. They were good, but from what I learned from about 2x2s, they've got the same type of hierarchical setup.
I think in October, Watchtower will tell JW that Armageddon, stop talking about it, just live your life. Yeah, they can't really put dates on things. I don't know.
Well, that would be more righteous anyway. I think we've had this discussion before with some individuals who say that, live your life like it could be tomorrow, but that it's not going to come until until after you die. My Armageddon is, I always said, my Armageddon is no farther away from my tombstone. If it comes before then, great. But otherwise, I'm going to be, what I've done in my life is going to be according to how I lived it.
The 2x2 was on news a few months ago due CSA abuse.
Interesting. And that's another thing that you get with, we were talking about before, about organized religion versus not organized religion. You simply cannot, if you're not in, as soon as you organize and you've got a hierarchy, you're going to end up telling people that you have to trust them. Or at least it seems like that's the pattern.
I think this is interesting, not a splinter, but could be JW twin. I'm curious also, since the numbers are dwindling, I mean, it's an obvious thing when we're talking about conventions and meetings and different things, right? Where are all those people going? Are they starting their own little groups? Obviously, because you get online, I don't know. You get online, or you have these groups like on Facebook, you have social media, or you'll have little groups that are localized or something like that. I mean, that's how it started for the Bible students. That's how it started for some of these groups. They just meet and then it just starts to grow. They have something that's different and then they just start to grow.
And that's the problem, though, because I've heard reports of some of these groups. Yeah, right. And the Jehovah's Witnesses are a sect then. They're all a sect. They create their own little group, and that's just not what Christ intended. At least that's what I'm discerning now. And that's what I've discerned before even becoming a witness. Like I said to the judicial committee, no, I am a witness of Jehovah. Christ has appointed me a ministry, and I'm associated with others who have that same dedication to God. Oh, you're associates now. Oh, Jesus criminy.
I want to read this too. Cult training is so strong on the mind. Do you ever see a day in the XJW community where a type of governing body and or elder body develops over time?
Already has. Just go on to XJW. Which one is that?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
The XJW site that we were that you
XJW
loaded.
discussion
Yes.
on Facebook.
Is that the one?
Well, there's a couple. There's the empowered group.
No, it's the empowered
That's the one.
where the individual acts as a governing
That's
body.
a group,
He doesn't like your comments. He just
He'll
deletes you.
just delete you.
But I don't think it's so they already have, but in their own little sects. So you've got these own little groups, and they've got we're the mediators.
Somebody needs to be in charge.
We're the mediators to make sure that the comments. Tiffany had made a comment calling somebody out, and they deleted her comment.
I think I just supported, right? So
Well, you supported somebody else. I guess that's what it was. Yeah. And they deleted the comment. And then it's like, no, we don't need to, we've got a governing body here, huh? Oh, no, we don't have a governing body here. Well, you just deleted her comments. So yeah, we do. Thanks for telling me who you are. So yeah, it's already happened to these groups, but it's only those who will, and it's like a cult following. We were talking to somebody else and they said, what were their words verbatim? They're kind of groupies. Is that what she said? Kind of a groupie of this individual.
Oh, the person said she didn't use the word groupie, but she said I like to be in their orbit.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
It was more than that though. There was something else that was said too. But yeah, those types of things have already happened to where if you don't fit in, we'll just, shun you the same way witnesses do.
Yeah. This person said, I think most become atheist. I have a little thought about that too, because I think sometimes many times when you're coming to the realization that you've been lied to by a specific thing or a group of people or even a person, it's almost easier to just throw it all away instead of actually piecing it out, like picking it apart and seeing. It's like you got to do all the digging all over again. All the excavation has to happen again. Instead, it's just like, just abandon it. I don't want to believe in all that garbage anyway.
Throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak.
And so then they just don't want to believe in anything.
But this really goes back to our statement that we talked about with the cable guy, Elder, where it says, where I said to him, what's the harm in going beyond, where I said to him, going beyond the things written. They keep going beyond the things written. He said, what's the harm? And then that whole rundown that we already talked about earlier, where he finally admits and says that it invalidates God's word. And that's exactly the problem. So now these individuals look to these people instead of God's word. And so when the people betray you, it's as if God betrayed you. And so then it's very easy to cast it off. And quite honestly, I think Watchtower does it on purpose because that's exactly what they want to be able to say to the rest of their adherents about you. Isn't it great that they can tell all of the rest of the people, look, this apostate, they've gone to the world. They don't even believe in God anymore. Their life is in drugs or in this or in that. And that's another thing that they cannot say at all about us. We pretty much have the same beliefs we had all the way along.
But it's like the scripture, it says they're worse than, how does that scripture go? You're worse than Gehenna. We always use that scripture. Now I sound like I don't even know what I'm talking about. You make them twice as liable.
Yes. When he's talking to the Pharisees, and he says, you go traverse land and sea to make one a proselyte, and then you make them twice as liable to head to Gehenna than they were in the first place.
Yeah, so the people gather these JWs, and then when you can't even have a question, then all of a sudden you're
disfellowshipped, and now you're worse off than you were in the first place because you don't want nothing to do with God. Because now you're disenchanted or disheartened or disillusioned.
Right. Okay, we've got a few more here. I love that comment. I call those groups Watchtower Light.
Watchtower Light.
Stacy Bauman, ex-elder in California and sports announcer now. Interesting. Joe and Fran. I've heard some things about you, Joe and Fran. Like I've heard that you have a channel or you
do good things.
Yeah, a little group. And I think it's good.
Yep. I think you've traveled around and visited with people and more power to you.
Okay, let's hope not. No more governing body or elders. There's already enough false prophets and people who will BS you as it is. Yeah, that's true. If you ever wonder why Watchtower never encouraged study with Hebrew, concordance, and they never have provided one. I asked elders for Hebrew concordance, and they had no idea what it was.
Yeah, we've got one, and you can't get one in Watchtower literature. You've got the Greek one, and I'm like, well, why don't they have the Hebrew one?
Yeah.
I don't know what their angle is on that. I think there's a lot of things that you can learn from. I think maybe, at least on face value, their angle is it's like when I would go out in the ministry. A lot of times I tell people, you got to understand the Bible. We like to view it as if it's for us, but the fact is, it wasn't written for you. It wasn't written for me. The things that are written aforetime were written for our instruction. So I just hold up the Bible, and I'd say, this is for the Israelites, and this is for spiritual Israelites. And it talks about new scrolls that will be written for spiritual proselytes, for lack of a better word, even though proselytes were mentioned, but it would talk about those living under that kingdom. So that's often the intro that I would give as far as the Bible. But I think a lot of times that people discount the Hebrew scriptures because, now we've got the Greek scriptures and they're different. It's like there were some people that I would talk to, and they're like, I have a hard problem, or I have a hard time melding the Hebrew scripture God with the Greek scripture God. It's like they're two different whatever. One is harsh and demanding and whatever, and the other is more loving and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't see that, because in Revelation, I see the Hebrew God quite clearly and the things that he's going to do, that he basically, as the shadow of his government there, enacted with them back then.
Jill and Fran encouraged so many of us on Rick Fear and or Fixing Faith YouTube. Yeah, that's what I've heard. God does not need kingdom halls, especially the ones with no windows.
I have never seen a kingdom hall with no windows. I take that back. Maybe one or two.
English changes the meaning of Hebrew word a great deal. Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of changes all the way through since the beginning of whatever.
And that's the problem with language in general, right? I mean, you just cannot maintain the same language. And that's why we don't look at the scriptures as literally as a lot of people tend to. For example, to me, there are more principles to go by, and you could kind of see the spirit. The spirit. My statement on spirit is, we've got spirit. Yes, we do. We've got spirit. How about you? What is that? That's a spirit of competition. They're trying to amp up. So, so that's what spirit is. Spirit, the twin word to me would be, the parallel word would be motivation. So you could have, that's a motivation of competition, which is actually against the Bible spirit, but it's a spirit nonetheless. So spirit, you can see the spirit of the Bible, so to speak, through the things that are written, instead of taking it so literally, because so many things, language can morph over time. And not to mention, words could be the antonym of themselves. I betray the Christ. Which does that mean? Does it mean I go against the Christ, or that I imitate him? You see, it means both, depending on the language meaning. So I guess what I'm trying to say there is that we tend to view scriptures spiritually as opposed to literally. It's like the scripture that says all the things. What's the scripture about in Timothy where it talks about it being God's word? Jeff.
2 Timothy 3:16, you mean?
Yeah.
Like all scriptures inspired of God and beneficial?
Yeah.
For teaching, for reproving, for setting things straight?
Right, but it's
I'm setting doctrine, you mean, in the King James Version?
Yes, and I'm trying to think of, so which scriptures were? Was it the scriptures before that was written? Was it talking about the scriptures that were written after? Which scriptures written after? How about the ones that some people claim are spurious? So which scriptures were it talking about? Was it talking about the ones that would come much later that are in Revelation? How about the ones that were written after? So it's you can't really, all scriptures inspired of God, but which ones? Are we just talking about the Pentateuch here? Which ones? So we don't look at it so literally, more like these are lessons to be learned from. Sorry, go ahead. Hey, Bunny.
No, don't say sorry. You're fine. Hi, Miss Bunny. Love the impromptu discussion. By the way, did you see the new book study for next year? It's a children's book, Milk at the Proper Time. Love you guys.
Milk at
right.
the proper.
Isn't that funny, the dumbing down of Watchtower?
You have become those needing milk, not solid food.
It's really a sad deal. Like, are we not past that? Joe and Fran are personal friends of mine. We spent the last memorial together in my shop while my wife of 30 years went to the memorial. She does her and her, I do me, and we love each other. That's really good.
And that's good that you have that, because we've met so many where literally the elders
really
have
good.
told them to leave their spouse.
Yeah,
and
it's
they
wild.
have good relationships. So that we're encouraged that,
good.
or we're happy to hear that despite the differences. At the same time, we no doubt can empathize with the struggles you have in the differences that you have to go through as well.
Mm-hmm.
And memorial for us, to me, that's it's funny that Watchtower will talk about how, you know, you can do a memorial by yourself, but how often have they encouraged individuals just to do it by themselves?
Yeah, they want to. It's their biggest holiday.
They want to maintain control over it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, since it's funny, but they hated it. They absolutely hated it. And I say we've always bucked the trends of witnesses. We literally left town
On
every
purpose.
memorial
On purpose until
they appointed me as
you.
an MS.
Until they roped you
Roped
in.
me in as an MS and had me doing tasks at the memorial. But other than that, we always took off and went somewhere else for memorial, because we didn't want to have
needed to
somebody
get
else.
away.
Yeah.
We needed to get away, and it was
This
time
isn't
for
your
us
opportunity
to meet
to play master over my faith. I'm going to go somewhere else, meet some individuals, and show up as some Joe off the street.
people.
You know?
And I think it was interesting too, because sometimes we'd walk in and they would wonder like who we were, because, you know, obviously there's a campaign to get an invitation out, or, you know, whatever.
Are these witnesses?
Or are they not? Are they studying?
Did Bethel send somebody?
Yep. 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 We had it
Let's
all.
put everybody on eggshells.
We had it all. Okay, I want to read this. Do you ever dream about your time as a JW? I've been out for 35 years and never dream I'm at the Kingdom Hall or a convention. Well, I don't dream about my time as a JW, but I do have nightmares about the people that took advantage of me. It's like I have a recurring trend of thought, I guess, of them doing really bad things, like or I'm having arguments with them, or I'm trying to defend myself, or I usually dream, if I'm going to dream about something, it's like that. They're not good dreams.
For me, I forget what the term is called. There's even a song about it by a rock band, and I forget the term. I came to a point where I used to have recurring nightmares, and then I learned how to control them. And then it was like, okay, this is boring, so that I shut it off. So I kind of don't really dream that much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So
I feel like I'm always fighting somebody, but it often involves them, and it's gotten a lot better than it used to be. But yeah. Yep.
No, we've been on here for 3.5 hours almost. I'm getting tired.
Are you? Has any JW write you letters at all?
No.
Oh no, they would never. They don't contact us. They don't, because they're viewed as apostates. No, they don't. Nobody's ever contacted us.
Yeah, when they came out, I think with our last live, we were talking about that, because they were supposed to, you know, contact those who were.
How long
no,
have you been out?
Wasn't a live.
I'll
It
let
was
you
it was a video on the annual update, I think. It's like we were like, oh, we're going to get in contact? No. We're apostates because, you know, we asked questions that they couldn't answer.
My Bible study asked a question that
we shouldn't
didn't
take
like.
credit. Yeah.
I shouldn't take credit. Yeah. Joe and Fran, we have been out since they disfellowshipped us November of 2018. And in April of 2019, we started our YouTube channel as a way to help and cope. Yeah, cope, but help other people have a safe place if they needed to talk to us, or if we needed to share some things. We had gone through some really twilight experience, and we've been we've been present on YouTube, not as much as we'd like to be, but we've been available to people through email and
we pop in every
comment.
once in a while and do a video. And every time we say we're going to be more active, and every
it's
time
difficult.
we're so dang busy that
Yeah.
we don't. And
Everyone's busy.
we curse ourselves every time for not doing more. But
yeah, support is definitely needed. And I sometimes get in my own head about myself. Like sometimes we have to be selfish with ourselves and our mental health. Like you just get too wrapped up into it, or you get too much involved, and then it's like you got to take a step back, and then it's like,
as they say,
okay, my ministry is important, and I do view YouTube as a type of ministry because you're helping people.
Back in the original way, ministry means
Mhm.
to serve others and to assist them. It actually even had a hospital type meaning to heal. But go ahead.
Yeah, but it's also a type of ministry where you're helping yourself. So sometimes when I feel like, okay, there's some things in my life and I just need to get back at YouTube, or I need to help somebody, I need to be more selfless, this is an avenue for me to do that, because we live in North Dakota, if Joe and Fran don't know that. And it's our way of helping. It's our way of socializing. We're 70 miles from a McDonald's. we're way out here. There's only a few people in our county, if pretty much. So yeah, if we didn't have the internet, I don't know. We've discussed that before. Like social media and the internet is amazing. I can't imagine somebody going through disfellowshipping and being shunned by their family and friends 20 years ago, 30 years ago. That would be an extremely painful experience. It's painful now, but even more so then.
Yeah. This comment, I dream of friends. I think my brain is trying to reconcile issues brought by shunning. Yeah, it's especially those who you thought you were your friends. I think it's debatable that they were actually your friends. A friend is born when there is distress. A friend is born when there is distress. Actually, yeah, I think it says a brother is born when there is distress even. A friend can be sticking closer to a brother. So to link those two scriptures, but it's the same painful thing where we help that couple move over here for nothing, and then they in the end say, "You're not a brother." Well, a brother is born when there's distress, and you had distress in your life when we came to your aid, and now you don't consider me a brother when I've done nothing to you personally, just had questions for the organizationally. What's that got to do with you?
Mm-hmm.
So certainly you weren't a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what really makes you think, especially if you've had lifelong friends. And we're different. I'm different, I should say, in that regard, because I wasn't raised as a witness. So it's not like I've got lifelong friends in the organization that I've grown up with or whatever. Whereas Tiffany does have some. I would say that she was kind of an outlier too, even though she was sort of raised since, at least pre-teen with an elder, but she was sort of a black sheep, so to speak, in the organization, congregation.
But I can honestly say I can't think of people that I've had in my life solidly for any length of time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's difficult. It's really difficult.
Yep, I don't blame you, Jane. It's getting late. By all means, go to bed.
That's the second time you've said that. I hope.
What did JW Field Service in Cemeteries?
What are you reading? Where are you reading that? That's what I was trying to read. I hope it's not true, but I hear JWs do field service in cemeteries. If true, that is below low.
Well, it's just as bad as pretending to go knock on the door. Now they're going to become the Mormons baptizing dead people. I shouldn't say that. LDS baptizing dead people.
This person says, "Hello, Joe and Fran. This couple is solid gold. I love their channel." Oh, thank you.
Well, I think they're saying that to.
This couple is solid gold. I love their channel. Oh, are you saying it about Fran and Joe, or are you saying that about us?
Doesn't matter either way.
Either way, it's
good deal.
Yeah,
we're glad that anybody finds support.
I think they're saying it too, Joe. They have a lot in common with us because they're the ones. Yeah.
Yeah, we really appreciate that a lot of people are getting and that's why we don't feel like we need to be out there. It's always good to get a new perspective. And I'm not diminishing the fact, especially the way we are disfellowshipped. It's absolutely unique in that we didn't do anything wrong whatsoever. But I just want to emphasize that so many people are doing a great job out there on YouTube that it really does make you feel like, if I don't get out there, it'll get done. The work will get done. Somebody will find encouragement from somewhere else, and so we do appreciate that. We have no elevated view of ourselves like we're somebody special by any means. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, not at all. It's just sometimes I think a person, not how do I say this? It's like a person needs to still have an outlet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like I do not feel like my channel, our YouTube channel or platform or whatever it was, our soapbox, whatever it is, I do not value it over anybody else's. I just really felt like it's an avenue for us to cope with something that absolutely should have never happened to us. Like, even when we talk to witnesses, they're like, why are you even disfellowshipped? Why are you even, this is wild. These men have gone feral. Like, it's crazy.
Maybe that's a funny visiting graves of relatives with the tract.
What happens to the dead?
All the JW jokes of
and then they
what happens when someone you love, someone you didn't love doesn't die. The new system tracks.
No, we
but yeah, we appreciate that a lot of people are out there doing the work, and so just adding our 2 cents. And so hopefully we kind of, it's going to be 3.5 hours. Like I said, I'm getting tired. I still have to get up early and work tomorrow, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're going to work tomorrow too. I was raised in and left the org 2 years ago when I was 38. For some reason, I just found your channel 2 months ago. Oh, thank you.
Well, hope you find something in there interesting. We would love to do a lot more, especially, when we first started this, we don't want it to be dogmatically religious. We make clear that we are, but we don't expect somebody else to be. If somebody wants to be, we can share our viewpoints. We're not dogmatic about our viewpoints, even though I may be firm on my viewpoint. There's a big difference between sharing in a way that's dogmatic and ruling over a conversation. I think we had this discussion with somebody else, and it was like, no, I can be firm in my opinions without requiring you to have them. So I can be firm in my beliefs while still considering yours. So, and then that's quite honestly, that's keep testing whether you are in the faith. Keep proving you yourself what you yourself are. So as Paul said, I don't gauge myself as receiving anything. Constantly under my own examination. But
this person's writing us. I love the videos of you both working together as a couple. I'm an independent welder. I cringe just a little when you're doing your fabrication, just saying, you do what you got to do. We're not professionals. We're just hacks of all trades, I guess.
Yeah.
One of the greatest challenges to all ex-JWs is listening to those you disagree with. Yes.
And the one thing I will say is, as far as fabrication and work goes,
enjoy your restoration.
It's easy to weld on 2 pieces of 1/4-inch steel that's clean. Go weld on a rusty trunk floor of a vehicle that the guy doesn't want to pay to replace all the way to the frame rails. It's a whole different game when you're chasing welds through rusted steel. So a lot of our fabrication comes from that type of stuff. But
yeah, we like to do restoration on things, and I'm trying to think what we've done this year for restoration.
We did that Model T, or was that last year?
Have we posted about that? We did one. Yeah, I think we did post about that.
We did post that, which is just a quick
and then we took it out
barnyard restoration out in front of the shop.
Was that the last thing that we did? Was that the last big restoration project we did? Because this year you haven't really started much. We've just been moving things to another building. But he does have that 65 Mustang that fastback that he's torn it all apart Like
I haven't had time.
like
to
the
work on it.
interior's out. He's worked a little bit on the motor. But it's got, like I said earlier in the live, the next month is literally a stuff and fluff. Get everything in a building, get everything off the ground. So if we do
Snow's coming.
any sort of project, that is one of the cars that's planning on going inside. That maybe, and it
Yeah.
will be in a heated place, so maybe we'll be able to do a little bit on that. But other than that, no.
Well,
Yeah.
we hate to go. We will, but like I said, I'm getting tired.
I'm getting hungry.
We'll figure out another excuse to make another one. We'll watch for it.
Yeah.
Send us some ideas.
Yeah.
You can always contact us through unassignedvlog@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And we'll do our best to respond.
For sure.
Much love, y'all.
Thanks for coming on to the live, and hopefully we see you soon.
We will be tormenting the people afterwards who click on this because they're like 3 hours. My God, what is wrong with these people?
Know. Well, sometimes go really, really long. Been a while. Good night. We'll see you the next time.